Good evening, Daytona Beach. And welcome to the Daytona Beach City Commission regularly scheduled City Commission meeting. We're delighted and appreciative of having each of you with us this evening. At this time, we would ask that Ms. LaMagna review the procedures for tonight's meeting.
Good evening. Agendas are available on the table in the lobby and at the front of the commission chambers. All the exhibits pertaining to items on the agenda are posted in the lobby. Please feel free to view the exhibits at any time during tonight's meeting. You are required to fill out a yellow form to speak before the City Commission during the business meeting. Forms are available in the table in the lobby and at the front of the commission chambers. You must complete the sections that ask for your name, address, agenda item number, signature, and date. The form must be completed and placed in the designated box. Agenda items under item number 9 are public hearings, and citizens may speak at the designated time. Item number 7 is your opportunity to address the City Commission concerning any item that is on the consent agenda. Please indicate on the yellow speaker sheet the agenda item number of the item or items that you are addressing. Items or discussions not listed on the consent agenda will not be heard during this comment section. All citizens completing a yellow form will be allowed to speak for 2.5 minutes. When you approach the lectern, please speak clearly into the microphone and give your full name and address. The 2.5-minute clock on the monitor above the dais will start running when you begin to speak. Pay close attention to your time. You'll be told when your time has expired. Item number 13 is the public comment forum, and it will convene after the adjournment of the business meeting. This is the opportunity for the public to speak on any issue that is not on the business meeting agenda. All citizens completing the green form will be allowed to speak for 2.5 minutes. When you approach the lectern, please give your full name and address. Disorderly conduct in the public meeting of the City Commission. Article 2, Section 6238 of the City Code of Ordinances reads as follows. It shall be unlawful for any person to behave in a riotous or disorderly manner in any public meeting of the City Commission or any committee, agency, or board thereof, or to cause any unnecessary disturbances therein by force, shouting, or any other action that is calculated to disrupt such meeting, or to refuse to obey any ruling of the presiding officer for such meeting relative to the orderly process thereof. Please be courteous and respectful of the views of others. Personal attacks on the City Commission, city staff, or members of the public are not allowed. Please silence cell phones and other wireless devices during the meeting. All conversation must take place either at the lectern or on the dais so that everyone can hear the business being discussed tonight.
Ms. LaMagna, may we have a roll call?
Commissioner Traeger?
Here.
Commissioner Delgado?
Here.
Commissioner May? Here. Commissioner Cantu?
Here.
Commissioner Henry? Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Mayor Derek L. Henry.
Here. We will now have the invocation led by Commissioner Reed, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Traeger.
This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And once again, Lord, we come before your throne and we say thank you. Thank you for all that you've done, all that you're doing, and all that you shall do. Thank you for a city called Daytona Beach, Florida, and thank you for an opportunity to serve. As we gather here this evening, Lord God, we thank you for a man who served us for 17 years. We pray that he and his family would be blessed as he departs from us, but yet continues to live. Now, as we convene tonight to discuss the city's business, help us to be clear in our decisions, help us to be unified in our decisions, and help us to make the best decisions that we can according to the information that has been provided to us as one, as the City Commission of Daytona Beach, Florida. It's in the mighty and matchless name of Jesus I pray. Let us all say, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow. Best pledges I've heard in a while.
We'll now move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of the April 7th and the April 21st regular City Commission meetings.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Traeger and a second from Commissioner Reed. No questions or comments. All those in favor, let it be stated by saying aye.
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 Those in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. At this time, we will have our agenda approval. If there are any changes, our city manager will address them at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. We'll add to the agenda under presentations
6C and 6D, and we'll take item 6D first under presentations.
Approval of the agenda.
Pardon?
Did you,
Oh, okay. Do I have a
Second.
Take a motion from Commissioner Traeger and a second from Commissioner Reed. No questions or comments? All those in favor, let it be so noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, so we'll now move on to item number 6, which is our presentations. And Mayor, we're going to take your presentation first.
Okay. Well, tonight is, it's kind of, it's a pleasant night. I'll just say that. It's been a pleasant experience for me working with our city manager. And we have a number of individuals that I would allow to address the commission and our community. Because when you have a city manager for 17 years, thereabout, in the city of Daytona Beach, it's quite, sort of just short of a miracle. If you know anything about our politics, you know that they are not subtle. They're polarizing and challenging, and to be able to acquiesce, I won't always say please, but at least indulge 7 bosses who are bossed by almost 70,000 residents is a Herculean accomplishment. And to put it mildly, it speaks volumes to what you've been able to accomplish. And in a few moments, I will try and illustrate what those things are on behalf of the citizens. But before I do that, I would like to invite those who are to come forward and just illustrate in your way, what our manager has meant as it relates to your role in our community and what you've seen. And before I do that, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the presence tonight of our manager's wife, daughter, and future son-in-law. And I would say this, that to have a man in such a tough job, in order to be successful, you have to be grounded. And I know this, and he doesn't talk about himself, but when you are an individual who observes others, I've observed him. And I watch how, he handles things. And the reason that he has been, in my mind, largely successful is because he's been grounded. And that foundation has started, with his spiritual foundation and his relationship with his family. And so, large part of the reason that you're able to be successful in this tough environment is because of that. And so before we make any further presentation tonight, the first thing that I wanted to do on behalf of our city and personally on behalf of me as mayor is to not only acknowledge you, Mrs. Chisholm, but I want to share with you a bed of roses, a bed of flowers, to express our appreciation for you, for helping to keep him grounded and to express, to be his support. And so that is appreciated. And if you would, Well, I didn't take the names, but I do know who is here in terms of who would go first. Mr. Redmond, would you please indulge us?
Certainly, Mayor. On behalf of my wife and myself, Jean, it's a real pleasure for us to be here.
This is Bill Redmond. You still have to identify yourself.
I think most of the people here know me.
We do.
Because of the, so. But, you know, Jim, it's, over the years, it's been a privilege working with you throughout your career, with you and your staff on many occasions, not just in Daytona Beach. And some of them have been challenging to work with you because of some of the things that you've asked us to do. One comes to mind was a municipality you ran, and you had decided that they didn't have a solid waste contract that was sufficient for the city. And so you put it out for a bid, and the company that I represented at the time won the bid. And I asked you, when do you want us to start? And you said, tomorrow morning. Well, it takes trucks and people and everything else. We did it, and there wasn't any misses. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. And I received a telephone call from you a little over 17 years ago, and you said that you knew that I was involved with the city of Daytona Beach, and the city was in search of the new city manager at that time. And did I think that you would be a good fit? My answer to you was, I believe my response was to you was at the time, most definitely, but I would also recommend you call another friend of mine for his opinion, who is a city manager in the local area. And that person was Joe Yarborough, city manager of South Daytona. My involvement with the city started in 1993, when it was my responsibility to oversee the waste collection contract for the city's contractor at that time was BFI. Also, Commissioner Ruth Traeger and I go way back. We were the two people, original founding members of an organization called Keep Daytona Beach Beautiful. Once the mayor and the city commission selected you and their next city manager, you took the reins, and you spent a considerable amount of time, approximately 1 year, evaluating many departments and those who were in charge of those departments. Once you had those evaluations, you started to streamline and upgrade and modernize these departments in the city as to what it is today. How smoothly the city runs compared to other municipalities, and I deal with a lot of them, including the county, especially. As I have stated, many people within our industry, you can read a municipal financial statement better than most in any municipal government. All anyone has to do is to look at the financial stability of the city of Daytona Beach today as compared to what it was 17 years ago. Many can remember the financial state the city was in at that time. The legacy you leave in this city is with all the other municipalities you have managed, and I know most of them, is that you truly leave it in a better place than you found it. We wish you and Tina all the happiness as you move into the next chapter of your life in retirement. You have earned it. You deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Husseini?
Mayor, member of commissions, good afternoon. They say if you want to get to know a man, see if when they get rich, is the money or the power, or you play golf with them. Jim Chisholm, in the last 17 years, that every time that I have met with him, he never looked at his position as a manager and let's just get rid of, look at the rules and stay with that so I don't have to deal with this. Time and time, Jim Chisholm, and I have dealt with many managers, many counties and cities. Jim Chisholm never, ever looked at the rule book and say, that's the rule, that's how we're going to do it. He always tried to solve the problem of this community. And he did an unbelievable job of solving those issues for the good of the city. So Jim, congratulations. You know, I can't wait now that you retired, because before he's always busy, or he has a knee problem, you know, like all of us. Looking forward, you know, one of the best things is when these guys get retired, you get to play golf with them, and I hope I can get some of his money. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Brown? Thank you.
Cece and I are here this evening because we wanted to express our gratitude and our congratulations to Jim and his wife. Now, Jim is the point man, and she's the backup. Local government may be the most important piece of our democracy because it's closest to the people. It listens to the people. It changes with the changing wishes of the people. And as those wishes have changed, there is something else that is affecting what we do. And when I think of we, I'm thinking of people in this community and people in surrounding communities. And it is, what can we do to help everyone have a better lifestyle and to rise educationally, economically, and with the feeling that, gosh, I'm proud of this place. And it takes leadership to do that. It also takes financial acumen. The world runs on green. Green stops, the world stops. That includes every family here, city of Daytona, the United States of America, et cetera. And so one of the basic tenets of his leadership is economic, meaning making doggone sure that everything that's done by this body is the best interest of the people. That's hard. It's hard because you have an elected body here, and they have to be responsive to the people who are their constituents, and that's the way it is. It is really a difficult job to be a city commissioner. I think it's more difficult than any other elected position. And so among all of that amalgam of decisions that have to go on every day and every week and every month, it is taking what he knows are in the best interest of the community and putting those together so they can be implemented by the elected people. And then the people that are on the staff have to make it happen. In 2007, we had an awful thing happen in the United States, and it was brought about by a series of mistakes that may have been overlooked by our regulators. I'm thinking about financial banking regulators, and a lot of things happened that had a tendency to put a big hurt on a lot of people, and there were a lot of people all over the world with a big hurt, and there were people in this community with a big hurt. And through all of that, Jim and the people who were elected to safeguard the folks here in this community, Jim was the leader. It's not easy, and he has to say things that aren't very popular on occasion because they're right. And then sometimes there are people who have not pleasant things to say about it. That's part of the price of being in elected office and in appointed office. And so it's really, I have had the opportunity over a long period of time to deal with a lot of professional managers of government. And Jim is number one, best I've ever dealt with. And that's because he can say no, or he can say yes, and when he says no, he backs it up with facts. And when he says yes, he also backs it up with facts. And so we are really, Cece and I are really, really proud to call the Chisholms our friend. And we are very proud that they have been able to bring this community to the next level and the next level and the next level. And now we have a new manager coming in, and he will have the opportunity to take us up to the next level. So, Jim, thank you very much. We love you.
Now, for the person who has known Mr. Chisholm, and they knew each other before I was born. So, and that wasn't yesterday. Mr. Lohman, would you please indulge us? If you will?
Mayor, you are not that funny. That was very funny, by the way. So I was thinking, and I said, I know a side of Jim Chisholm that the rest of you don't. I promise you that. Jim and I were college roommates, and I will not tell 90% of the stuff I'd love to tell you, but Jim, the part of Jim that most of you don't know, that I do know, is we were roommates in college. So I've heard him snore. I've heard everything you can imagine about him. So, but what you don't know is that Jim grew up in St. Cloud, and he holds the all-time record playing football for St. Cloud High School. He scored more points and more touchdowns than anyone ever. And we all know him as the city manager. We do not know that side of Jim Chisholm. He not only was voted the best athlete in his high school, he held all those records. His dad was the coach of the baseball and football team of St. Cloud, and there's a huge stadium in St. Cloud right now that bears his dad's name, which is really cool. So I know all of you don't know that part of him, but you know, the best part that I liked about Jim over all the years was he and I used to double date every now and then. And it used to always make me mad that he somehow he seemed to have a prettier girl than I did. And along came Tina, and she brought him back in line. And he's so far over his head with Tina, it's amazing. But,
I agree.
The incredible thing is Jim and I both went to college on baseball scholarship. And the fact that he holds all those records in football, and he goes to college on a baseball scholarship, that tells you what an incredible athlete he was, Jim. That's been impressive to me my whole life. But let me get my glasses here. I don't want to miss anything on you, Jim. I have to tell you, we all know Jim enough to know that he's a true leader. He's solid as a rock of Gibraltar. You can always depend on Jim. And Jim, thanks for the memories. I sure love you, big guy. Thank you.
You know, I'd just say that one of the best experiences that I've had is sharing lunch with these three guys, Mr. Redmond, Mr. Lohman, and Mr. Chisholm. It was inspiring, but you know, I said earlier, I'm an observer, but you could see the authentic, deep friendship, and it went beyond friendship. It was brotherly love, and I just took a lot from that day. It's one that I'll never forget because I enjoy seeing that in people who have reached milestones in life, and so. I don't believe that our former mayor is here, but before I make mayoral remarks and allow the commission to make remarks, I do realize that ICMA is here, and we want to hear from you at this time.
Mayor, members of the commission, my name is Ken Parker. I am a retired city manager. I am serving currently as a senior advisor for ICMA. Jim, okay, in 1975, you joined ICMA. Okay, and as I recall, you were up in Leon County at that time, and as part of that assistant county administrator, if I recall my history of your professional movement correctly. Jim has served the public for a number of years, both in city and in county. And one of the highest recognition our profession can give to a member is life membership. and I'm here tonight on behalf of the International City and County Management Association to bestow on you life membership in ICMA.
Congratulations.
You also have to make friends in the fraternity of managers in the community. And Ken was a legendary manager for Port Orange. And, we've done pretty well around here in our local municipalities to keep managers, a job that usually lasts about 4 years. Like a professional football players last about 4 years. And I think it's sort of a similar dynamic in terms of the battering that takes place. But, I guess your football days prepared you well for the work. But we would be remiss if we didn't hear from former city manager from South Daytona, who is also with us, Mr. Joe Yarborough.
Mayor, I'll be brief, not to slight you. Brief. Now I know Bill Redmond, how he ended up in my office one afternoon in June about 17 years ago. I thought he came to visit me. He comes in there and he sits down and I say, Jim, what brings you to our side? I knew him long through the profession before he came to work at Daytona. And he finally came around and said, I'm a finalist. I said, for where? He said, Daytona Beach. I said, oh, good grief, Jim, what have you done? Is Arcadia that bad? And the reason I said that, at the time, and I don't think any of you were on the council then, Daytona Beach wasn't getting the best news. No. Daytona Beach was having a lot of issues with the fire union. It was having auditors, independent auditors coming in that saying that you're not on good financial standing, or you've got in other words, you don't have the money you should have. And then and the economy was flat. Your tax base was flat, which might say something to the fiscal condition of the city. You couldn't have hired a better man. He's tenacious to the point sometimes I accuse him of being stubborn. But he is tenacious. He works hard. And, as alluded to earlier, this is not an easy job. You almost got to be half schizophrenic to do it. You have 7 bosses. You've got 7 folks that if you want to be there tomorrow, you got to figure out how to bring them together and get some policy decisions. And they don't need to be yours. They need to be yours. And you don't, as a manager, need any credit. Your job is to make your bosses look good. And to Jimmy's credit, he's done that. Mm-hmm. And to his credit, and thank you so much, Mayor, I think he's got a wonderful wife. Attractive wife also. Mm-hmm. Must have married her back when you played football or something. So, as a colleague, and I consider him a friend that's watched him for the 17 years, that knows the industry, you've done a dad-burn good job, buddy. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, I didn't want to slight you. If any of you had any felicitations to offer, you're free to do so at this time. Well, I'll start with Zone 1. That's what they have directed me to do.
I have really appreciated working with Jim Chisholm before I really became a commissioner and afterwards, and he has always, always treated everyone fairly. We might not always agree, but we listen to each other, and that is important. It is important that you listen to the other person's opinion and that you give credence to it. And personally, I've always found you and your family great. And I wish you good luck, and we will miss you. but I hope you stay around Daytona Beach, because this is definitely your home.
Thank you. Commissioner Delgado.
Jim, thank you for all the help you've given me, taking me in and showing me so much so quickly. You were very patient with me, and we bonded over many things like our Pomeranians sleeping on our heads and things like that. But you were really helpful and very kind when I had a lot of insecurities and a lot of difficulties kind of navigating this. So I really appreciate that. I'll never forget that. And, you were always very down to earth and very approachable, and, never felt I was taking your time unfairly or anything like that. You were willing to talk with me on weekends, nights, anytime I needed your guidance, and I appreciate that very much. It's the kind of manager that you were, and as a citizen of Daytona, I know how much you did for the city before I got involved in it, but now having been on the other side of it, I just marvel at how you managed to right a ship that was in dire straits. So thank you very much as a citizen, and thank you very much as a commissioner. You've been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chisholm, I always call you Mr. Chisholm, never Jim. I have always had a lot of respect for you. You have a very difficult job. And I guess the reason I'm teary-eyed is that I found somebody who was visionary. And that is a hard thing to find. And to work with somebody at a high level was a fascinating experience. And I hope to have that again. I appreciate you taking me under your wing, and there were times when you listened to me. And there were times when I walked in and I said, I know you're in that office, stop hiding. And there were times when I would call and I would say, Mr. Chisholm, I'm on my way. I've got something really important going on right now, and we're going to try to fix it. And then that's what we would do. And so some things have happened that citizens' lives have been improved, and you don't even know it's happening. It just happened. And that, to me, is how government works, that we fix it before it even becomes a problem. And that is what I appreciate about you most. I'm a terrible golfer. I have no animals or pets, but I know where to find you. That's not going to change. And so I think that our relationship, hopefully moving forward, will be even better. I'm looking forward to many conversations with you about the things I see and experience. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cantu.
Okay. I have known Mr. Chisholm for much shorter time than my colleagues, but I would like to thank you for your part in helping me adjust to my new role as city commissioner, and I wish you a happy retirement with lots of relaxation. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Henry.
Quite enjoyed the story about your athleticism. I really did. And I've always looked at sports as a way to build leadership. And I see the connection. When you think about the quarterback on the team, he's got so many people he's got to get together. When so many people have different ideas, you got the star, he wants to be the star. You got the diva over here, you got the temperamental person over here, and he's got to keep all of those people together. When you think about the point guard, the point guard can't be a selfish person. He's the floor general. He has to keep the game moving. He has to know the pace of the game. You can go fast with this player, but you might have to slow it down for this person. This person over here can't catch, and this person over here may just want to be a ball hog. So just the correlation of sports shows me. I made a great connection with you and your leadership. And I just want to say that the thing that I loved most about you is that you always look to say yes if you can. You have some people who immediately they look, it's no, there's no way we can do that. We can't do it. It's impossible. And sometimes it is impossible. Sometimes you can't do it. But for the most part, you always look to say yes, and you always look to see if there was a way we can get the things that every commissioner needed and keep it tight, still keep the budget tight. And that's probably been the greatest takeaway for me as a commissioner in working with you. And also, I just want to say that Zone 5 is looking awesome, and it is because of you. I can remember just even 10, 12 years ago, the difference between Zone 5 10 years ago and Zone 5 today. And when I drive through that zone, I'm like, this place is shaping up. It looks really good. And it's because when I come to you with projects or things that need to be done, you're right on top of it. And I think you value every part of the city and every part of your job, you value it. And I think that you do a wonderful job of just making sure that each one of us can go back to our constituents with things that are getting done in each and every single area. And anybody that says that Zone 5 is not moving along, it is moving along, and that is because of this man right here. You know, and did a fantastic job with my zone, with the city, period. But I'm the mother duck of Zone 5, so I'm telling you about Zone 5. I wish you only the greatest in retirement. I know you told me when we went to lunch that you would like for the city to buy you a boat, and I really wish we could have got you that boat. Not looking too good, but if we could get that boat, we could. As for now, I know you're going to have to look forward to just handing that wallet over for the wedding that I know is going to be a wonderful wedding and a beautiful wedding, and you have a beautiful family and a beautiful daughter. She's just as gorgeous as she can be, and thank you for everything that you've done, and we're going to miss you.
Can you all tell that she grew up in a house with 5 siblings, all of whom were males, and played 3 sports a year at minimum. And now she's the mother of 2 phenomenal young athletes. So while she understands the nuances of quarterbacking, and now she never played a sport in her life. But Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. Commissioner Henry, he may have asked you for a boat, but he said because I work at Embry-Riddle, he wanted a plane. And he said because you're Maury's friend, can he build me a new house? He got a big list. There are 2 words that my mother told me will take you a long way in life. And those 2 words are please and thank you. Mr. Chisholm, please accept our gratitude because you have left it better than you found it. And we thank you for your service and all that you've done. Now, Commissioner Henry alluded to me being, what was it, the stubborn one or the whichever one was it?
She really wasn't. She was just using her hands.
Oh, that's what she was doing? Oh,
She told.
because I do have to admit in these 8 years, I have sometimes been a little stubborn. And I told Mr. Chisholm I wasn't scared of him. He told me he knew. But in the midst of it all, I have enjoyed my private meetings, or what are they, my secret meetings with you and Bob. You have allowed me to speak freely. We've been very open with one another, letting each other know, exactly what we thought and what we thought we could and could not do. And I appreciate that. 17 years serving one city and a total of 47 altogether. I will not be doing that. So I commend you for your public service of 47 years. I wish you Godspeed and God's blessing, that when you do walk away from this place, that you continue to have a life of laughter, love, and joy. So many people work and give so much of their lives, and then when that time comes, they just drop, But I know you're going to keep on living, because as long as you keep moving, you'll keep living, and I doubt that they're going to let you sit down. So, on behalf of Zone 6, myself, and the citizenry, I just say thank you. Thank you for what you've done, and thank you for what you're going to continue to do, because I know you won't be still. Okay?
No, he won't.
Godspeed.
Well, Mr. Chisholm has worked for I don't know how many commissioners, but there have been 3 mayors. He started out with Mayor Golden, who by herself cannot be described, duplicated, or replicated. The three of us couldn't be really, in my mind, in some ways more different. Then he had Mayor Ritchie, who I know greatly appreciates Jim. And so I would say, and I would be remiss if I wasn't completely honest, when I first became mayor, obviously I wasn't supported by a lot of people because a lot of you know I came from a crisis and sort of ascended from the ashes to this seat. But I would say that when I came, I had already been a commissioner, so I had an idea about what I wanted to do. And so one of the things that I was certain of was that I didn't want to be groomed by a seasoned manager. And I wasn't really groomed, but he certainly wasn't groomed either. He already knew what he was doing. And I had an idea of where I wanted us to go. But over time, if you have righteous intentions, like any relationship in any marriage, when two people enter that relationship, whether they understand each other or they agree with each other, doesn't always matter in the beginning. What really matters is their intention. I knew, just as I know today, what I wanted. And it was one thing. It was what was best for Daytona Beach. In every single situation, every deliberation, every decision. Because I didn't necessarily know him, I didn't know that that was what he wanted also. But as you work together and you begin to really work towards a common agenda, and that agenda is the same. And we've shared one thing. And two people really couldn't be, in my mind, other than, our foundations. We're just not that similar on the surface, but at our core, very much alike. But we had the same agenda, and that was to make Daytona Beach a better place. And so over the last 8+ years, that is what I have noticed. And that is why we've been able to get along, to work together, is because our agendas were the same. And it didn't take me long to realize that. But once I realized that, I became comfortable. And I'm very appreciative of that, because the community, while many times they haven't agreed with you, haven't appreciated you. And, as an elected official, they don't always agree with me, but what I've always recognized is that sometimes they're right. And I felt that sometimes they were right about their sentiments about you. But what they were always wrong about was that your heart and your intentions for Daytona Beach were always in the right place. Commissioner Reed said what I have thought is that we are light years beyond where we were 17 years ago. It has been illustrated and stated tonight that when Jim Chisholm came, we were a city that met our commission meetings, lasted sometimes until midnight. The dysfunction of the commission and the relationship between City Hall and the community could not have been more perilous. We have evolved, and it is never going to be perfect, because the nature of local city government is that we should be scrutinized. Government that is scrutinized is government that's responsive to the people. But beyond the scrutiny, we ought know how to be civilized, and we have become a more civil, a more cordial community. And I, for one, appreciate the scrutiny. I believe it makes us better, makes us more responsive. Jim Chisholm does not have on his record an Ocean Walk. As important as Ocean Walk was to our community, it has not been well for us financially. It has been a challenge, and we are still paying for it. We've had complex situations and things to deal with. In the middle of a pandemic, we were able to give $4 million back to the residents in the city of Daytona Beach. Within a year's time, we've replenished the entirety of that $4 million. That is the essence of fiscal responsibility. And that is what having a new manager I feared the most, was the comfort and the security of knowing that when things came before us, that he was going to push us towards making certain that the fiscal responsibility was there. Because I don't know if you all know it or not, but I believe that the public work should be done from this dais. There are a few things that he and I have ever talked about that I don't come back and talk to you all about. Because I believe that we have to do the work in public, and that we should make the decision, that we should establish the policy, that he should execute the plan that we give. And that was why when I said I didn't want to be trained, I wanted us to establish the policy. Of course, he's going to have a vision. But we have to give him the vision that the people give us, and he has to find a way to make that work within the finances of what we have. And that is what he has been phenomenal at. We are economically stronger. We're a better city because you've passed this way. Now, for 16, 17 years, Jim has managed the city, which means that he's had access to whatever goes on in the city, and he's hired and fired a lot of people. And so I asked Bobby Yarborough to help me because I didn't really know how to appreciate Jim. And so she has helped me to share something with, and I hope that he will be able to reflect on this in his time in Daytona Beach. And part of it my goal was just to illustrate how much we've changed and how we're a better city because you've passed this way. And so I'm going to come down, and I'm going to ask you to come with me. I know you guys may not know it, but Jim is kind of a humble guy. Doesn't really like a lot of bravado. Well, I'm going to come down as I would with anyone else, and I want to share this with him. Got my good glasses on, so hopefully I can see. The city of Daytona Beach, James V. Chisholm Day, May 19th, 2021. Whereas Jim Chisholm, a native Floridian who accepted the challenging task of taking the great city of Daytona Beach to the next level of greatness on August 1, 2004. And whereas during his nearly 17-year tenure as city manager, Jim Chisholm greatly improved municipal services while achieving operational efficiencies, upgraded critical infrastructure, recreational opportunities, and public spaces, and ushered in a digital age by offering online services for residents. And whereas with his high level of commitment and business acumen, Jim Chisholm positioned the city to attract billions of dollars in private investment, which spurred thousands of jobs, enhanced entertainment opportunities for residents and visitors, and created a multitude of housing and retail options. And whereas as city manager, Jim Chisholm addressed difficult issues and worked collaboratively to find creative solutions, today the city's budget is stable in spite of the pandemic and the worst economic period since the Great Depression. The city is vibrant with unprecedented economic development opportunities, a diverse workforce, and a community spirit reignited thanks to the care and services of the city under his leadership. Whereas all of his professional successes, Jim Chisholm has decided to retire from his position to enjoy a well-earned retirement that will be marked by spending more quality time with family and friends. Now, therefore, I, Derrick Henry, on behalf of the City of Daytona Beach and the City Commission, do hereby recognize Wednesday, May 19th, 2021 as James V. Chisholm Day in the City of Daytona Beach. And we extend to him our most heartfelt appreciation for his loyal and distinguished service as city manager and wish him well in all of his future endeavors. In witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Daytona Beach, Florida, to be affixed this 19th day of May 2021. Thank you. Now, the key doesn't work, but I say this sincerely. And I think of places like just the many changes. In the middle of a recession, we built 2 community centers in the most challenged parts of our community. We rebuilt the pool. I told you what we did during the pandemic. We built a skate center in the middle of a recession. There's so many things that he was able to do in challenging times. And while the key doesn't work anywhere, you have the key. You've earned the key sincerely. And I say this because I know how Mayor Golden and I know how Mayor Ritchie both feel about you. You've earned the key to our hearts, and we appreciate all that you've done during this time. Wish you Godspeed.
Let's see, I think I got about an hour to talk, so. But I'm not one to spend a lot of time talking about anything because I don't know of anything I could say different than what you guys have said. I'm certainly not one that walks on water. There's some true statements made about teamwork and what it takes to be successful. And I found that Daytona Beach had the right atmosphere for me, even though it had a lot of needs that we had to address. But the political atmosphere was one which could be managed, and not that you manage them, but it was one that could be changed to the point that you could get something successfully done. But it takes everybody. It takes the commission, it takes the staff that the city has, and you have to get the right people in the right place in every instance. Once that happens, you can gain success, and it's our job then to take that success and bring the economy and the rest of the community up to the same point. And hopefully, I think we've done a good job of that, and I think the city's in a good position to continue moving forward. And I think with the leadership of the new manager, it shall do that. For me, I'm going to the next chapter in my life, and that is looking at consulting or looking at how I can help other individuals or governments in meeting their needs with this community as well as others. But thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you for those of you who came in homage of our manager. Thank you. Thank you.
Jim, you should be very proud of the job you've done.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next presentation tonight, which is the proclamation to Family Health Stores. There she comes.
We, you know, gotta go, we gotta go.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
And speaking of that, when I was running for office, I went to Rollins College and I was running for Senate. I was a freshman. And so I had a sign, you know, you have to campaign. And it was a tough campaign for me, being a little kid who was at Rollins, and, you know, most of the students were a lot different than me, had a lot of money. And I was real poor. But I put a sign up in the bathroom. One of my campaign slogans was, I put it over all the stalls. If you got to go vote for Derrick Henry. So, hey, it's probably the best campaign slogan I ever had. Yeah. Yeah.
We're ready.
That's all right, okay. The city of Daytona Beach, in recognition, is we have Family Health Source with us. And this week, we interviewed them for the mayor's making a difference in our community. We have agencies and individuals throughout Daytona Beach who make a difference every day. And this organization is one that is not known as well as we would like for them to be known. But the work that they do in our community is extremely valuable. And we want to recognize them. In recognition of Family Health Source, whereas Family Health Source is a federally qualified health care center offering a wide range of medical services to children and adults at 5 locations throughout Volusia County. And whereas under the direction of Chief Medical Officer Dr. Michael Ham Ying and CEO Lori Ashbury, Family Health Source provides a one-stop shop for high-quality primary and ongoing medical care, including dental and pharmacy services. They treat patients with chronic illnesses as well as provide preventative care. And whereas Family Health Sources does not deny services to anyone, let me repeat that. Family Health Sources does not deny services to anyone, whether they are uninsured or underinsured. They offer patients income-based payment options. And whereas their Daytona Beach clinic is located at 800 Bevel Road and accepts walk-ins or patients can schedule appointments. And whereas Family Health Source has partnered with the city of Daytona Beach to make COVID-19 vaccinations more available to residents by offering vaccine clinics in underserved neighborhoods. To date, they have vaccinated more than 1,000 Daytona Beach residents. Now, I, Derrick L. Henry, Mayor of the city of Daytona Beach, Florida, do hereby recognize Family Health Source in the city of Daytona Beach, Florida, and encourage the citizens of Daytona Beach to do likewise. Again, thank you for what you all are doing, and I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that our very own Commissioner Cantu is also a part of your illustrious board. The work that you're doing in our city should be highlighted, replicated, but most importantly, supported. and what you're doing is sincerely appreciated.
I'm going to do this one next. The NAC. Oh. Jump around a little bit. We're going to do 6C first, which is the presentation of the proclamation of recognition of May 20th, Florida's Emancipation Day. This was added to your agenda tonight. I sure do.
Spoken this much in the beginning of the meeting. I feel sorry for you all because my mayoral comments won't be any shorter just because I'm up here. But at any rate, tonight it's also important. We just have a lot of things going on, and I would be remiss because what I'm about to acknowledge is Florida Emancipation Day. Tonight, and I noticed this, it was a beautiful thing to hear our pledge in such resounding unison tonight. And you may not have noticed it, but we who have been without so many guests in the audience noticed a difference in the cadence and the unity of the pledge. And I appreciated it and was grateful for it. The city of Daytona Beach, the world's most famous beach, recognizes Florida Emancipation Day. And I will read the proclamation, but before doing that, I also want to acknowledge that several other organizations in our community have acknowledged this day for its significance. They include the Midtown Community Development Corporation, who has created and established a proclamation and shared it with the city of Daytona Beach. They include the minority elected officials. They include the county of Volusia and our very own National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, led by our illustrious leader, Ms. Cynthia Slater, who will later present their proclamation as well. But just so we know, I think this is an important date in our history, and so I want to acknowledge this and read the proclamation. Florida Emancipation Day. Whereas President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on September 22nd, 1862, that all persons held as slaves are free. And whereas despite the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation, news of the end of slavery did not travel to certain regions of the United States for more than 2 years afterwards. And whereas on June 19th, 1865, federal authorities who had arrived in Galveston, Texas, informed slaves that the Civil War had ended and that the enslaved were now free. And whereas June 19th or Juneteenth has been commonly recognized and celebrated as the day that slavery ended in the United States. And whereas May 20th, 1865, Union Brigadier General Edward M. McCook formally announced President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation from the steps of the Knott House in Tallahassee, Florida, effectively ending slavery in the state of Florida. And whereas as a result, many Floridians celebrate May 20th as Emancipation Day in Florida. And whereas while the recognition of June 19th as the day of emancipation in the United States denotes a significant part of history, it does not comprehensively and accurately represent Florida's historical emancipation record. And whereas in recognition of Florida's unique history with respect to the emancipation of slaves, Daytona Beach Mayor, Derrick Henry, Mayor of Daytona Beach, wish to recognize May 20th of each year as Florida Emancipation Day in the city of Daytona Beach. Now, therefore, I, Derrick L. Henry, Mayor of the city of Daytona Beach, Florida, and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim May 20th each year as Florida Emancipation Day. Now, this does not detract from Juneteenth, but what it does is it establishes a correct and accurate reflection of the totality of our history. Our state was emancipated on this day, whereas the rest of the United States in its totality was emancipated on Juneteenth. And we will continue to celebrate Juneteenth in our community, but we will also acknowledge this date annually. I want to thank Ms. Slater and Ms. Ann Harrell, who brought this reality to our consciousness, and I want to thank our colleagues from the commission and the city for acknowledging it. Thank you, and God bless you. Yes, you can.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Slater, and I am president of the NAACP here in Daytona Beach. And I want to first thank the mayor and the commissioners. No, first I want to thank the city manager, Mr. Chisholm, for his 17 years as a city manager and leading the city. So thank you and Godspeed. And to the commissioners, thank you for allowing me to present this resolution.
And you can pull that down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Resolution recognizing May 20th as Emancipation Day in Florida. Whereas on September 22nd, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, which declared that as of January 1st, 1863, all enslaved people in the states currently engaged in rebellion against the Union shall be thenceforward and forever free. And whereas news of the end of slavery did not travel to certain areas of the United States for more than 2 years afterwards, and whereas on June 18, 1865, Union General Gordon Granger landed at Galveston, Texas, with 2,000 soldiers to occupy the state of Texas, and whereas on June 19, 1865, General Granger announced the Emancipation Proclamation, informing slaves in Texas that the Civil War had ended and the enslaved were now free. And whereas June 19th or Juneteenth has been commonly recognized and celebrated as the day that slavery ended in the United States, and whereas the Florida legislature passed House Bill number 243 in 1991, creating Section 683.21 Florida statutes, which officially designates June 19th of each year as Juneteenth Day to commemorate the traditional observance of the day the slaves in Florida were notified of the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas in Florida, the date was May 20th, 1865, when Union Brigadier General Edward McCook formally announced President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation from the steps of the Knott House in Tallahassee, Florida, effectively ending slavery in the state of Florida. And whereas as a result, many Floridians celebrate May 20th as Emancipation Day in Florida. And whereas the recognition of June 19th as the day of emancipation in the United States, while denoting a significant part of history, does not comprehensively and accurately represent Florida's historical emancipation record. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Volusia County Daytona Beach branch of the NAACP as follows. Section 1, the Volusia County Daytona Beach branch of the NAACP recognizes May 20th of each year as the Florida Emancipation Day. And Section 2, the Volusia County Daytona Beach branch of the NAACP will call on the Florida legislature to recognize May 20th of each year as Emancipation Day in the state of Florida, passed on this day, May 19th, May of 2021. And as the mayor said, this does not minimize the Juneteenth celebration that takes place annually here in Daytona Beach. and that we, the NAACP, will continue to support and promote the Juneteenth celebration, for which we have done in all of the years that the NAACP, the Juneteenth was taking place in Daytona. And I just want to tell you a story. My mother is from Texas, and as children, she would always talk about Juneteenth, and we would say, "Mom, you don't know what you're talking about. And there's no such thing as Juneteenth." You thought it was a made-up word, but here we are today celebrating Juneteenth. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move back to item 6B, which is the presentation of legislative actions. Mr. Hardy Smith, Government Relations Administrator, to report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the commission. Hardy Smith, Government Relations Administrator for the city. The purpose of a brief presentation tonight is to share a quick report on results so far of the just concluded legislative session. And my disclaimer is that most of the legislation that has passed is either on its way to the governor for his final action or hasn't gotten to the governor yet. So it's kind of like the game has ended, but we really don't know what the score is. Also, this review is a top of the surface, a quick take on what's happened. We very clearly are going to have a more extensive legal review, a financial review of the ramifications of what's happened in the legislative session. And a very specific example of further review is and departmental analysis of exactly what the wording language means is that a bill that was passed that the Utilities Department is going to be encumbered with developing a plan for eliminating all distribution into public waterways of reuse water and wastewater runoff. And that plan has to be completed by November of this year and implemented by 2032. Now, the cost ramifications are just off the charts, but that's something that the legislature, as an unfunded mandate, certainly has passed on to the city. We'll be sharing when the report is available from the Florida League of Cities on their final analysis of all their legislative package. As of today, they had not yet finalized that. And I do believe at the next Volusia League of Cities meeting, a Florida League of Cities representative will be on hand for a legislative review. It seems like every legislative session, there's a personality that develops around the session. There's always dominant issues that drive discussions and the political activity. And without fail, there is always some unannounced, unexpected influencer. This year, COVID-19. An added degree of difficulty that we all faced with interacting with our members of the legislature in this session because of COVID-19 was that the Capitol was shut off to public access. So there wasn't the normal Volusia Day opportunity to go in and sit down and visit in the office with members of your legislative delegation. Even committee meetings were all via Zoom reporting, and you went to the Tallahassee Arena to call in remotely. So what happened to the 6 legislative priorities that this commission adopted? So number one, I'm not sure if we want to talk about report cards in school here, but number one, support protection of home rule authority. We saw a continued effort to limit the authority of local government. We saw bills that were passed that will regulate local occupational licenses, as in there won't be any more, code enforcement, emergency management, regulation of home-based businesses, and local impact fees. Those are just a couple. Those bills were all passed. A bill that did not pass was one affecting local government's participation in class action legal situations like we're involved in right now with the opioid class action suit. The legislature would have preempted us from being involved. Those class action activities would happen in the future. The state would get the money and then decide what local cities would get. But that bill didn't pass. Priority number 2, support funding for affordable and workforce housing. The original bill, as stated, would have permanently eliminated all funding of the Sadowski Fund going to affordable housing. They would have just taken it, and we would have never have seen it. The bill was modified thanks to the League of Cities, thanks to us and our team working along with other cities, so that the good news is the money was taken away from the fund again this year, as in past years, but it was a one-year situation. So they didn't go as far as a permanent swipe. So next year, it'll be back on the list again. Action priority number 3, oppose unfunded mandates. I've already shared with you the results of Senate Bill 64, and that's the impact of the city not being able to distribute into the Halifax River, for example, reuse water that we're not using in our system. This will have enormous financial consequences to all local governments. There is a hardship clause in the bill, so we'll be looking at that very carefully. Action item number 4, support of local government regulation authority of short-term property rentals. That bill went from bad to not as bad from a city standpoint, but the bill died. So from our priorities, that we were successful. Number 5, support funding for infrastructure projects that improve water quality and assist in aquifer recharge. Well, as I've already shared, they went from exactly the opposite. They're going to have a plan to deal with water recharge, but we're going to have to pay for it. We were wanting them to give us money to help do that. That's not going to happen. Action item number 6 on your list, support agency programs that provide assistance to local governments, and we'll just see where the budget ends up and what winds up being funded and not funded after the governor's review. And to close, I'd like to share with you that thanks to the active involvement by our local city team, several of these bills, again, I'm repeating, went from bad to not so bad. Some other bills that we saw that were very much of interest to us, changes to the public notice and advertising. We'll be monitoring to see exactly how that's going to play out. There are going to be some options that cities can have. The gambling bill is still in process right now. Legislation was passed regarding a new compact with the Seminole tribe of Florida. They're in special session to deal with this. So whatever the session winds up with is going to have to be reconciled with the Seminole tribe. The information that I've been given is this, whatever winds up happening, is not going to, you're not going to see casinos all over Daytona Beach or probably anywhere in Volusia County. That's not going to be wide open gambling. They did pass a funding opportunity for sea level rise and coastal resiliency and grant opportunities. That's something that we're very much interested in, and we'll be pursuing those opportunities. And another important bill that died was a bill that would have cut off FRS new member sign up. So that bill did die. The city has seen the importance of being active in the legislative affairs arena. And our approach has been one of teamwork. We've heard a lot about teamwork tonight. And the involvement we have is not just from a city staff perspective, not from just having a lobbyist in Tallahassee, but our department heads and our whole staff leadership team get involved in the. And I want to also underscore the participation by our city commissioner, because you have inquiries, you bring issues to us, you ask great questions. That helps in the process. And it's critical that all of that continue because we're in perpetual rinse and repeat on the legislative process. The process never ends. The 2022 session will start in January this year. This year's 2022 is the early year. So that means the legislative cycle actually starts this summer with committee hearings. So we'll be coming back to you very quickly looking at a legislative list. It's important to also know that the influence of our Volusia legislative delegation is on the upswing. Two things. Our delegation members are starting to rise in seniority. That's very important. And we also have members of our delegation that are rising in leadership. So something to certainly pay attention to. And in closing, the next session is going to be influenced by legislative redistricting. And do not underestimate the influence of the 2022 statewide elections and the 2024 national presidential elections, because that will be driving everything that happens in Florida politics. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for you, sir. So if I'm understanding, and you've been in Tallahassee, so is less money coming down from the state toward the individual cities? Are we having to fund more projects? I keep bringing that up from the TPO perspective. Do you have any idea how far-reaching that is?
We won't, Commissioner, we won't have a final answer until the final budget is signed by the governor.
Is this the most you think we'd have to be putting aside in the upcoming years, like moving forward, more than we have had to put aside before?
I would think and that's the true answer is going to be from a financial perspective, but forecasting, what's coming ahead, where's the state in revenues, what are the city priorities, and what projects are we looking for to be funded, and what departments. So if it's an FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation type project, where are they going to be in funding? We know gas tax is just about going away as a revenue source. That's how FDOT projects are funded right now. So
Okay.
hard to give you a concise, accurate answer.
Okay, that's one thing. A few months ago, I was speaking with FPL, and in Tallahassee, they were looking at a bill, and they were looking for support to take away the double poles. Do you have any idea what happened with that? They were trying to lobby
don't know,
some
but
of
I'll
them.
find out.
Okay, because that's an important one for Beachside. I'm not sure about your zones. We have lots of double pole situations, takes up a lot of the sidewalk. I'd like to know more about that. And then finally, could you please speak about code enforcement? Could you please tell us exactly what that code enforcement bill is?
Bottom line is local communities will no longer be able to accept code complaints via anonymous complaints. Now that's essentially what the bill did. You can certainly still have code enforcement, but it's going to switch to, I know we've talked about being a reactive emphasis on code enforcement. So if you want code enforcement, you're going to have to go out and get it. Be proactive. Let me ask Scott, Captain Lee, am I right? That it's the anonymous reporting is what wound up, but everything else code enforcement can do.
So, what is the impact of anonymous, non-anonymous? So you have to actually state your name, state where you live. So it's public
Yes.
record for everybody to see when you make a complaint, let's
Yes.
say a neighbor down the street, et cetera.
Yes, or the code officer has to see it.
Okay.
Yes.
All righty. And when does that go into effect? So that residents know, because that is of particular interest to me on Beachside. We have so many people every single day contacting us. So when does that go into effect?
Commissioner, I'll check the effect date. And again, that bill is waiting the governor's action. And it just depends. It may be on signature, it may be at a date certain, but I'll find out and report back to you.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Does that mean that if someone calls me and then I report it to code, that that's the same sort of process? Anything that code does not witness themselves has to be reported.
you're going to you're transcending into more of a legal area, which is outside my purview. So we'll have to evaluate that and have the exact specifics.
Yeah, because, we get many calls on code, and then, my job is just to pass it on to Captain Lee. Okay, that's understandable. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Just wanted to tell you thank you as well for all the response every week and answering my questions, because I had a lot, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 7. This is public comments for people addressing the City Commission on items on the consent agenda. Our first speaker is Frederick Brown, and on deck is John Nicholson. And Mr. Brown speaking on item 8A.
Yes, thank you very much. The name's Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge, Daytona Beach. This item has been pulled from the agenda numerous times and keeps getting back on there. I oppose the way it's being presented and the way it's being funded by the city. The particular property in question has gone through many years of deterioration. I have seen no zoning code enforcement fines. There was nothing fined of the owner for allowing the building to fall into such deplorable shape. As I stated previously when this came up, it was not hard for me to observe all the aerial views of this property since 2008 when they were on record. And it's very clear that the property was continuing to deteriorate over this 13-year period. The saddest part of all is that the person that owns this property, the persons that own this property, state that they did not have the financial resources to tear it down. The city did the right thing in tearing it down, because if you've all seen the pictures of what the property looked like and what happened when the building collapsed, and thanks to the grace of God above, nobody got hurt. Pieces of the building fell on the sidewalk below, where quite often there are people there. What I don't understand is why the city allowed this building over this many years to fall in such deplorable condition in such a nice historical neighborhood as Bethune-Cookman College area has, named after Dr. Mary McLeod, and to have this section of Midtown look this bad and become this dangerous, and yet there was no fine assessed. And the $30,000 the city had to pay to tear this building down. And I also question whether or not proper asbestos remediation was done, because this is quite an old building. And there was quite a bit of asbestos known to be put in these buildings, especially in the roofing materials. And yet, there was no fines levied in this. And I would like the city to take a more proactive approach towards this situation and assess the fines. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is John Nicholson, speaking on 8F, and on deck is Sandy Murphy.
John Nicholson, 413 North Granbury Avenue. Jim, I don't know what took you so long to get this thing done. I'm talking about 8F. Remember, we talked about it. Hyatt Brown was going to build a building on Beach Street, and I suggested that we continue the landscape down so it would be finished when his building is finished. Well, his building is finished, and we're finally going to get to it. I know I was told when I was coming here, I got a phone call. Do not say anything negative about Jim, and I'm not saying anything negative about you, but it's about time we got it done. It really will enhance not only Hyatt's building, but that end of Beach Street. And we can anticipate a lot more going in. I know we've got the apartments going in, we've got the parking garage going in, Burgoyne Properties, knock on wood, they've been to the city. All of that would be enhanced by this section, so I'm glad it's coming in. But I do want to remind you I have spoken to you also about other roadways. Those people behind me don't know the same Jim that I know. You find money and you hide money extremely well. So you could easily afford the boat or the plane or whatever from what you saved the city. So I would ask you to consider Ocean Avenue, especially handicapped, because there's no sidewalks at all for them. The boardwalk needs it done. Main Street, you've done Beach Street, you've done MMB. It's time that we do Main Street. Also A1A, the lights. We do so many of the things that we're supposed to do, and we stop and didn't finish them. So thank you for all you've done, but you still have a couple more days, but you can get all this stuff done. Have a good day.
Our next speaker is Sandy Murphy, speaking on item 8F, and on deck is Ann Ruby.
Sandy Murphy, 136 Park Avenue. First, I'd like to say that an expenditure of over $600,000 for design and engineering services that is going to open a whole new phase of activity on Beach Street does not belong on a consent agenda. This is something that merits a little bit more discussion on your part, and I'm disappointed to see it preserved this or presented this way. My opinion is you should not approve the expenditure of additional funds for narrowing and adding utility work on Beach Street at this time. First of all, it's a project that is built on a traffic study that's over a decade old. It did not contemplate the Brown & Brown headquarters. It did not contemplate the renovation of Riverfront Park. It did not include the impact of activity that will happen on the CTO First Baptist property as that is developed. And even then, the study projected that this would meet needs on the street until 2032. That'll be 10 years, if that, after it's done. We really need to have a better analysis. Speaking of analysis, nobody has gone and looked at, or at least as has been discussed, what the true success or failure has been of the narrowing project that has already taken place on Beach Street. We have a case study sitting there that should be analyzed so that we understand whether, in fact, it met the intentions of slowing traffic and increasing retail traffic to those stores there. I know that it's incomplete because Riverfront Park is incomplete, but at least looking at the information that we have feels like it should be the starting point. When the city was promoting the half-cent sales tax, you had a list of projects in priority for places that needed the road work the most intensively in this town. All of a sudden, that has disappeared, and now the first big project coming through the capital budget is the further narrowing of Beach Street. I think the people whose streets are on the rest of that list would like to know what happened to the rest of those projects and why these folks are coming to the front of the line. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ann Ruby, who's speaking on 8F, and on deck is Marjorie Johnson.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. I challenge you to ask why the plans for Phase 2 on Beach Street are not being paid with CRA dollars. I challenge you to get a succinct, coherent, and meaningful answer from city staff. If the answer is, it's not in the fiscal year 2021 budget, I challenge you to continue this until the October 6th meeting in just over 4 months. I challenge you to add the entire cost of this project to the CRA budget for fiscal year 2022. That budget is not finalized, and it will take effect in October. If it needs to be approved today, I challenge you to insist that staff find the funds in the downtown CRA, fiscal year 2021 budget notwithstanding. If they can't do that, I challenge you to insist on an adequate written presentation as to why not. Do not settle for a barrage of words tonight as to why that's not possible. Please note, Parker Menschenberg won the RFP for the southern end of Beach Street in 2010, and he honored that price until 2018 when it was finalized and signed. It's not impossible he would be willing to wait just 4 months until October 6th to allow this contract and project to be funded with downtown CRA funds. I challenge you to make this a decision with some understanding of the total cost to actually make these improvements. Those are numbers we haven't heard yet. I challenge you to insist this entire endeavor be paid from CRA funds from design to construction. I challenge you to ask why, oops, wrong page. We have already invested over $4.5 million of non-CRA funds on narrowing Beach Street. Continuing to pay for this with non-CRA dollars is just wrong. There are too many other needs for tax dollars in other neighborhoods. I challenge you to make sound fiscal decision for all the residents of Daytona Beach. Please do not spend non-CRA dollars on this project. Please pull this from the consent agenda and give it more careful consideration.
Our final speaker is Marjorie Johnson, who's speaking on item 8F.
Johnson, 122 South Key Street. I'm here tonight because I am really proud of all of the changes that are being made on Beach Street. I spoke with Mr. Brown before he left, and I informed him that that street there leading off from Bethune is in deplorable condition, and it's been that way for years. And it is time to fix it. He said, oh, they're going to fix it. I said, I know they will. The street in front of Bethune-Cookman needs to be paved too. It's all cracked up. When they had the meeting in the park, I asked the man over there off of Bellevue, when you finish at Lincoln, why didn't you go all the way through? All the way through to Beach Street down there, where Brown & Brown's building is. They painted the curbs. I went up there, they were painted nicely, yellow. I begged them to paint the curbs on front of Mount Bethel, Shiloh, and Mount Zion. It never, ever happened. The street was paved. I advocated to make it happen. We need you all to get these streets paved. We're spending a lot of money on Beach Street, and we need you to go all over the city where we are paying taxes, and my tax bill was very high. They tripled my taxes over in Volusia County. I want my taxpayers' dollars reinvested in my community. And that street that is all cracked up, it is in really, really, really bad shape. It does need to be done. But I am appalled that you all would sit here and wait until Brown & Brown put that nice building there to repair the street. And they're going to put Miss Bethune's statue there, and that's going to look good. But that street really does need to be paved, and Brown & Brown is doing a good job up there getting all that work done. But we're giving them everything, and we need to give everybody a piece of the pie. You need to go back on Martin Luther King. I met with the city manager, and I informed him that those where the yellow is need to be painted. So you need to go back up there. You never painted it when you did the street. Make it happen. Work for everybody, not just for some. Thank you.
Okay, that was my final speaker for the consent agenda.
All right. Does anyone wish to change anything on the consent agenda?
I have a question. I would just like some clarification on item 8F, Beach Street Streetscape Phase 2, that the 3 design plans will come back to the commission for approval. And do we have approximately when the plans would be presented?
Good evening, Andy Holmes, Public Works. Good questions. Yes, the selected or the proposed design alternatives would come back to the commission for direction on which way the final decision would go on those. And the timing of the completion of the documents depends somewhat on the funding source that we pursue to get the project funded. If it goes through FDOT, right now it's on the priority list for the TPO. And if it goes through FDOT, that process it operates on a different timetable than the rest of the world. So it takes a little bit longer to go through that, but sometimes that's worth it if we can achieve some funding from that source. So if it's all local funds, then it can go quicker, but it's a sizable project, so.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, I'm just curious, do you have any idea what percentage of local funds it would be? Because we've both been tracking the TPO funding right now, and we see the reduction.
The early estimate for the total construction cost is between $7 and $8 million, and as we go through, depending on what elements are included in the final design, that number can change. A percentage of that, maybe half of that, is fundable through the TPO process.
But even then, we still have to kind of work with other cities as well to get them to go along with this, correct?
Yes, there's a lot of work to be done, and the
Yeah.
design that is before you tonight is the first step in getting those processes started.
And just so that everybody else understands, the more money that we are able to put in the fund up front, the easier it is for them to go with us moving forward with our project, correct?
You get scored higher, the more the percentage of local contribution. So,
Okay.
yeah, the minimum is 10% local contribution, but
But if we went greater, the odds are we move to the top of the list.
sure, you get more
Okay.
points.
All right, thank you.
You know what, I have one more question. The potential roundabout, so that we have 3 designs coming. Will we have a design without the roundabout as well?
I'm certain I'm on safe ground saying there will be a non-roundabout alternative presented.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
When I saw the roundabout, I immediately thought of ISB, although these are 2 different locations. No one is requested, but I think the item 8F should be moved to the general meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'm not making a motion, I'm suggesting it. So we'll take yours as a motion.
And I'll second.
Okay,
Already did.
okay. We take a motion from Commissioner Delgado and a second from Commissioner Reed.
And that just to move that item, or is that to
Just-
move the item and adopt the consent agenda?
It's to move the item, and is it to adopt the consent agenda also?
Yes.
Okay, okay, we'll
Mayor,
take it in, yes.
And then-
Commissioner Traeger will need to file a conflict form.
And she has, I'm sorry, I was getting ready to announce that too. Just for the record, Commissioner Traeger has filed the Form 8B Memorandum of Voting Conflict for item 8A with my office. And if she wants to state the conflict.
I'm part owner of the property, but I would like to know if I can I can vote on the rest of the consent agenda with that one. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is anyone wish, we didn't address, were there any other changes you all wish to make to the consent agenda? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, so we'll move that to the end of the agenda. Move on to item number 9, which is our public hearings. Item 9A is the Development Administrative Services Planning Division, Main Street Tattoo, rezoning to planned development and redevelopment. This is an ordinance on second reading, quasi-judicial hearing, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone approximately 0.2 acres of property located at 405 Main Street from RDB2 Beachside Redevelopment Specialty Realty to PDRD Planned Development Redevelopment, approving the Main Street Tattoo and Gallery Planned Redevelopment District Agreement, authorizing redevelopment of the property with a variety of commercial uses, residential and other accommodation uses, and temporary uses, including special events and weekend outdoor art displays and sales, subject to certain conditions, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion.
Let me point out before we start, you do have on the dais tonight, and was emailed to you as well, a revised PD based on your direction at the last meeting to provide for a sunset clause for the outdoor art display.
Okay.
I'm sure Jessica can explain that further, but that is in front of you. And your
Okay.
motion will reflect the amended PD.
Okay. Jessica?
Good evening. Jessica Gao, Cupco Law Firm, 149 South Bridgewood Avenue. We will not take up much time, but I did want to say after the discussion at the last hearing, we did add a sunset provision to where the temporary outdoor art display will sunset 1 year from issuance of their certificate of occupancy for the site. So they're going to go out there, hopefully prove to you guys that they are excited about what they're doing and show what Main Street can be. So they're excited about the opportunity. We have included that. I think one of the property owners, Bobby Guarati, just wants to say thank you tonight for the opportunity to be heard. We've got a sea of red shirts out there. Normally when you see matching shirts, you get a little concerned, but tonight we're excited. So if Bobby wants to come up and say something really quick.
And I do have a speaker sheet for him.
That's what it kind of reminds you of. Yeah.
I'd just like to thank everyone for the opportunity to do this, and I've worked very hard and for the last year and a half with a blessed wife that's given me this opportunity and a blessed business partner, and I'm going to show you guys and bring some light into this town, and I want to just thank you that given me this opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
I do have one additional public speaker on this item. It's Mr. John Nicholson.
Kind of figured that.
Of course. Hadn't heard from you in a while.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. As you know, we don't have a very good track record on Main Street with our variances. We did a variance for $10,000 for restaurants. If they bought $10,000 worth of kitchen equipment, we would assume that they would serve food. We got fouled up by that by 12 restaurants not serving food. So I do have a problem when we do all these variances. The idea that we're going to grandfather this in, this gentleman has an idea, he's pushing it, but what you do stays after him. If it fails, if he moves on, if he's successful and moves, I know, we've put the 1 year in, and I'm asking you in the future, whenever we have these brilliant ideas, that we put in the statute, the 1 year limit, so if they're successful, we continue it. If they're not, we don't end up with the bars on Main Street without kitchens. And we have several on Main Street that are restaurants without kitchens. Thank you.
Thank you, support, Mayor.
I think so, too.
That was my only speaker.
Okay. Do you all have any comments? We've had a lot of discussion on this item.
I do. Why is it when John comes up here, when he says his name and address, it's always low and sultry, but when he wants to express himself, he gets loud? John. I don't understand that. Okay, all right.
Is that it? Okay. I realize that it's going to sunset, but I'm really not okay with just the freedom to have events without, city oversight. I could be okay with it for a year, but as we move forward after this year is up, we need to thoroughly review this. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, we discussed that outside and when they were working on this, and I've asked the staff to come back and revise the code that allows us to be able to do it through a permit process.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's perfect for me.
So
I would have been okay with doing it for a year, but at the end of the year, I wouldn't have been okay with that.
So I'm curious, the existing businesses who don't have this opportunity to just, do what they would like to do there, they still go through a permitting process, but they have the same opportunities to have the same types of events. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. No, they do not.
So I want to be sure I'm understanding. When they want to have an event, a sidewalk event, they've got to apply for a permit every single time. and go through the process every single time and then pay every single time. Is that correct?
At the last commission meeting, didn't we're going back to revise the LDC that I brought up. So when that expires, am I correct, after a year, they can go on to the LDC, correct?
Mayor Commissioner Jim Morris, Deputy City Manager. I manage part of the planning department. So first and foremost, the current codes applicable to Main Street don't permit the activity proposed by this applicant in their PD. The commission has directed us to allow the same process where there's adequate property to support an event by revising the code. The one-year timeline comes from the time of CO for this particular project. At the same time, as the manager already indicated, staff will be working with the commission to bring authority in the code to allow others the same if they have adequate land to do it. The current process that zoning uses is called a TPA. For typical promotional events, there's a 20 or 21-day limit annually for those businesses so they can use those segments of time up. That does not include the special event periods of Bike Week and Biketoberfest, which are originally really governed by a separate process in the Bike Week Master Plan. And this particular development agreement has an exception in it, which does not, it says it doesn't get the same rights during Bike Week and Biketoberfest. It participates the same as anyone else would in that particular activity.
I guess my concern is this. So let's say I'm a business on Main Street and I want to have an event every single weekend. So let's just make it very real. Every single weekend, I would like to have an event. I'd like to have art. I'd like to display art. I'd like to sell things as well. I'd like to do exactly what this business is doing. What recourse do I have?
The recourse is that you work with the staff, and we've already been directed by the commission. So let me back a step further. This particular applicant came with a particular process. There were some questions asked by the manager and by the commission at the last meeting. There was also direction given by the commission at the last meeting where this was considered to create this process so that it could be applied to other properties in the Main Street area. So that we are already starting the drafting of that. The document that is the PD, as it relates to this section, will have an impact on the drafting. The city attorney's office has been involved in that. So in terms of drafting something for commission consideration, I'd say we're probably better than 50% of the way through the drafting to do what the commission has directed us to do. This property owner thought of this process, brought it to your attention. I think the commission has recognized it as something that's beneficial for other users, and particularly, or perhaps I should say, in other areas such as MMB. So it's a grassroots thing that has come to the commission. The commission has directed the staff. There's no resistance from staff to get it done, and we're already underway to do that.
Question is, would they have to pay for an event every weekend? Or are we saying it's just unilaterally
Well, you pay
allowed?
for a permit anyway. So in a TPA permit, you do pay for that, and you use up your allotted 20 days. If you have it every weekend, then you have probably 10 weeks, I guess, to do that. But in terms of adoption of a process where your business license could address it, I think we will complete that process in between 4 and 6 months' time. It would be done quicker, but we have planning board to go to and redevelopment boards to go to before we come to the commission for 2 readings to amend the code. That's where the time is consumed, between the advertising and the timing on agendas. In terms of the work to do the job, like I said, I think we're more than 50% of the way there right this minute. We all wish things could be done quicker. Agendas you've got a 2-week to 3-week lead time on every agenda item.
It's not the time that is of issuance. The time is the time. It's the cost to the business owner, meaning each business is going to have to apply for a permit. They get X number of days, but another business does it all year round, and they've paid for it ahead of time.
That's true.
That's my issue. My issue is what can we do for the existing business community where
Amend
they're
the code
not
is-
paying?
amend the code is we're
And so
going
we could
forward.
put that
Yes, ma'am.
in there. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And we're going now. You've given us direction. We've had it for 2 weeks or so, maybe a little bit longer. It's underway.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
all right, thank you. All right, we have a motion, a second. Is that, you don't have any other speakers?
No, I don't have any
Okay.
speakers for this
All
item.
right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Congratulations. Look forward to your success. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Let us know.
We want to involve everybody, so
Okay,
y'all
thank,
come up with a bright idea, let me know.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9B, which is the Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, Land Development Code, Text Amendment, Right-of-Way Vacation Notice Requirements. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance amending Section 3.3.e of Article 3 of the Land Development Code relating to public hearings and notices to modified notice requirements for right-of-way vacations, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Delgado and a second from Commissioner May.
I do have one speaker on this item, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Frederick Brown.
John's cousin.
Yeah, the name's Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge. My concern with this, and I'm basically in favor of the concept because, as you know, I have brought up to the attention of this council numerous times in the past year of what's happened in the past with right-of-way vacations, as you titled it, is a notification, okay? And last year, there was absolutely no notification whatsoever on public land that was given away. This particular ordinance, the way it's written up, is basically a good idea. But my concern is this. When you try to interpret the distance of notification, you have 150 feet, if I've read it correctly. That's not much space. And then it's a question of interpretation. For example, last year when the public land was given away for an entire community, which actually by definition, the way it was written is for the entire state of Florida because it was written deemed to the public forever, does that mean everybody in the state of Florida gets notified? Certainly, I think it should go beyond 150 feet on areas that are of importance and areas where it is public concern. It needs to go beyond 150 feet. The public needs to know these things. Now, unfortunately, with the demise of the newspaper industries, not very many people reading the newspapers anymore. Most of the information comes from social media. That's how I was able to first find out about public land being given away, was through the social media. And especially with the pandemic, more and more people are on social media as versus reading newspapers. And with that in mind, there probably needs to be some forward thinking on our notification process, because I know the way it's stated, it just needs to be put in a public publication, which in the old days used to mean the local newspaper. But if nobody reads it, nobody gets notified. And this was certainly the case that happened last year. So there probably needs to be some consideration and careful thought given to which parts of the social media where we should use these. And I know the city already has, your communication office is doing a fine job. I'm on Nextdoor quite a bit, which is a great community social media. And that's how I find out what's going on. I've written a number of editorials there myself. So I would like to see the city continue and expand it on there and make that part of the notification process. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was my final speaker for this item.
And Mayor, I should make one correction. It is actually 500 feet for a mailed notice
Okay,
from the vacated right-of-way.
all right, thank you. All right, do we have any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, moving on to item 9C, it's the Finance Department amending master lease agreement with Truist Bank and FLC for the purchase of 20 police patrol vehicles. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Daytona Beach, Florida, authorizing the extension of Schedule of Property Number 2 to the Master Equipment Lease Purchase Agreement with Truist Bank, sponsored by Florida League of Cities, Inc., authorizing the lease purchase financing of the acquisition and installation of certain equipment herein described, authorizing the execution and delivery of an acquisition fund agreement, authorizing the execution of such other documents as may be necessary to complete the transactions completed hereby, and, contemplated hereby, and providing an effective date.
So move.
We have a motion from Commissioner Traeger and a second from Commissioner Delgado.
I don't have any public speakers on this item, Mr. Mayor.
All right, do we have any questions? All right, motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Now move on to item 9D. It's the Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, Coquina Marina, excess boat slip allocation. This is a resolution, quasi-judicial hearing. A resolution approving an allocation of excess boat slips for the Coquina Marina, formerly known as Markers 32, located at 861 Ballou Road, to add 2 boat slips to the Coquina Marina's existing boat slips, approving a slip allocation agreement with Coquina Marina LLC, establishing terms and conditions for development and use of the additional boat slips, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the slip allocation agreement, and providing when this resolution shall take effect.
So move.
A motion from Commissioner Traeger and a second from Commissioner Delgado.
And I do have a speaker on this item, Mr. Mayor. It's Mr. John Nicholson.
And the reason why I go so quickly and so quietly is because we no longer have 5 minutes to speak. We've gone from 5 to 3 to 2 to 2.5. That's why I speak quickly and slowly. Secondly, the boat slips, they've been there 20 years. Why are they asking for 2? Now, I know, Jim, you've heard me talk about the Tanger Outlet Mall would be successful. There would be a lot of development out there, and I was told, no, it wouldn't be. I was told there would be housing, that Margaritaville would go in and Mosaic would go in, and Rob said no. They would not go in until 2025 or later. Well, I'm telling you, there is development coming in to the city for wealthy people. They will come in and they will build on the river. There's only a certain number of boat slips that we have available for those properties. I'm asking you not to fritter them away before those developments come in. I know it's only 2 here and 2 there. But there's a certain number, correct, Jim? We have a certain number.
We have much more slips left.
Yeah, we have much more, but they can be used up before the developments come in. Remember the Black Pearl? They're going to need a number of them when they go in. There's like 4 properties on the ocean, on the river right now, who will have multiple use for those slips. So I'm asking you to be very careful because this is not the first time. We've given away several before in the past number of years. The next item will also ask for a couple of boat slips. I do not want to end up with not having enough boat slips for major projects like the one on International and the river. They will want boat slips as well. Thank you.
That was my only speaker on this item.
It took me a while to understand where you're going. I think I got you now. Okay, do we have any comments? None? Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
We'll now move on to item 9E, which is the Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, the Halifax River Yacht Club excess boat slip allocation. This is a resolution quasi-judicial hearing. A resolution approving allocation of excess boat slips for the Halifax River Yacht Club located at 331 South Beach Street to add 2 boat slips to the yacht club's existing boat slips, approving a slip allocation agreement with the Halifax River Yacht Club, establishing terms and conditions for development and use of the additional boat slips, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the slip allocation agreement, and providing when this resolution shall take effect.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Delgado and a second from Commissioner Traeger. Do we have any questions or comments?
And Mr. Nicholson had signed up for this item? No? Okay. That was my only speaker for this item.
All right, we have a motion and a second. No questions. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
We'll now move on to item 9F, which is the Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, Williamson Crossing Lot 5 Proportionate Fair Share Agreement. This is a resolution public hearing. A resolution approving the Williamson Crossing Lot 5 Proportionate Fair Share Agreement between City Shops at Williamson Crossing LLC and the County of Volusia, providing for the developer to pay a proportionate fair share contribution to Volusia County in relation to the construction of the Williamson Crossing Lot 5, generally located southeast of the intersection of LPJ Boulevard and Williamson Boulevard, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement and providing an effective date.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Traeger and a second from, was it Cantu?
Yes.
Commissioner Cantu.
And I do have Jessica Gao here on behalf of the applicant for any questions.
Do you have any questions? No questions? All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
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 Those in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, moving on to item 9G, it's a Public Works Technical Services Division, Latitude Phase 6 preliminary and final plat approval. This is a resolution quasi-judicial hearing. A resolution approving the preliminary and final plat for Latitude Phase 6, single-family subdivision located on the north side of LPJ Boulevard and west of Timber Creek Boulevard, authorizing the city manager to sign the final plat and permit recordation thereupon meeting certain conditions precedent, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute a contract for plat recording and a sidewalk construction agreement associated with the plat, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Take a motion from Commissioner Delgado and a second from Commissioner May.
And I have Mr. Rob Marohill on behalf of the applicant for any questions.
All right.
I don't have a question. I just like to state for my Bayberry residents out there that the sidewalk is supposed to start by September 1st, 2021. That's in this, and completed by March of 2022. I'd just like to have that on the record.
Okay. Good job, Commissioner. All right, do we have any other questions or comments? All right, have a motion, have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
We're going to move back to item 8F, which was moved from the consent agenda. Item 8F is the Public Works Department, Parker Menchenberg Associates, Beach Street Streetscape Phase 2, Professional Services Design Contract. This is a resolution accepting the proposal of Parker Menchenberg and Associates for the Beach Street Streetscape Phase 2 project in the amount of $619,076.97, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the professional services contract and providing an effective date.
So moved. So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Delgado and a second from Commissioner May. Okay, we have speakers.
I don't have speakers on this item unless.
I'm sure
okay.
we have two people want to speak.
Okay. They said, I was wondering because it said 9A, but so it's 8F. Okay.
Yep.
So our first speaker is Ann Ruby, and on deck is Sandy Murphy.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. I have accepted this is inevitable. This narrowing of Beach Street is going to happen. I get that. All I'm trying to get tonight is for you to have it, the design plans paid from CRA funds. That's it. It's the fiscally responsible thing to do. We have the Midtown Redevelopment Board spent $70,000 and had a grocery store study done. It's on a shelf. They recommended 3 sites. We can't look into that because there's no money to put a grocery store or work on that project in Midtown. In 2016, our public works people did a survey of all our roads and rated them 0 to 100. If you were under 30 was such a poor quality, it was going to get resurfaced. My road is a 76 in 2016. It is like walking on broken glass. It's impossible. You can't walk across that street barefoot. There are needs in this city for our citywide tax dollars. You supported a half-cent sales tax. And that was for roads and infrastructure. And as Sandy Murphy said, now here you are wanting to spend other funds, citywide funds, on this CRA project. There is a funding mechanism in place. It's called a CRA. This is in a CRA. These funds should be coming from the CRA. Do not get muddled up with it's an FDOT project. Do not get muddled up with, oh, there's COVID relief money coming. Don't. This tonight, all you are voting on are these plans, and these should be paid from the CRA. And when you look at your fiscal 2022 budget, you should be thinking about how you're going to fund the rest of it. Because if you're relying on FDOT money for half of it, FDOT money doesn't come fast. This is not going to be an overnight sensation. And as I said before, Parker Menschenberg waited 8 years from the RFP to the contract. It's not unreasonable to ask him to wait another 4 months if this has to come from the fiscal 2022 CRA budget. But this should come from the CRA budget and not any non-CRA funding. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sandy Murphy.
Sandy Murphy, 136 Park Avenue. I'm not as resigned to Ann is as to the inevitability of this happening here and now. I think that there are some questions that as responsible commissioners, you should be able to answer in order to make this decision. Why is it okay to rely on a 10-year-old study that contemplated none of the recent usage changes to that street to justify this plan? Why should it be done before we evaluate the success or failure of the narrowing that we have already done on the rest of Beach Street? Why should it be done with capital funds and not with CRA monies? And why can you take this project over other projects that rated with much greater need when you were going around saying what in our town needs to be most importantly addressed on roadways? This was not at the top of the list. So why should it be at the top of the list now? I think only if you can answer those questions should you vote in favor of this. Otherwise, I think it deserves more study and consideration, better information from the staff on what you're getting into here and why and how. Thank you.
I don't have any other speakers for this item.
Okay. All right, do we have any,
Mr. Mayor, can we get to answers as to why that's what the funding mechanism should be and why staff is doing it this way as opposed to another way? I don't.
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest if it's, I don't think we have all those answers right now, and what I suggest you do is continue this to the next meeting, and we'll have a report on the project.
that sounds good to me.
So I'd move to, I'll withdraw my motion and amend it to be that we remove this item from the agenda and ask to be brought back at the next opportunity with a staff presentation on the funding sources and why this would be funded one way versus the other.
I'm in my second.
I think Commissioner May was the second.
You amend your second? Okay. Do you have a comment? Go ahead. We have a motion, we have a second, we'll continue discussion.
I'm curious, what happens if for whatever reason we decide to fund it differently or the project gets stopped? What happens to the downtown area? It just stops? We just stop the project right there?
If we, I mean, what happens is we make the decision about what happens. That's just the bottom line. It's really up to us.
Yeah, so what are I just want to be clear I'm understanding the choices, because a lot depends on this, right? I mean, we have a lot of construction things happening downtown, timeline things, we have people building downtown right now. I'm, as a curiosity, because I'm sure they're watching right now, what is the overall impact, Mr. Chisholm, maybe you can help with that, to delaying, as a curiosity?
I don't think a delay to one meeting is that critical. Either, I think the policy decision in the end is after we provide you information about the funding sources and what's available and what's recommended and how it fits into the TPO budget and the budget with the state. I think when you have that information, you can decide whether you want to fund it as recommended or not. In any event, the funding for the design normally is something we pay for to offset our 10%. So that's a normal thing to do. Whether we've got it in the source, in the sources that are available in the CRA is a question.
And so what is the negative impact to the CRA funds? Have we already allotted things, or is part of some other projects coming out of that? How is that? Is that going to negatively impact what happens downtown?
It could have an impact on other things.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. All right, thank you.
Is it possible, I mean, if we're worried about slowing things down, I mean, can we fund it one way and then reimburse from the appropriate fund later if there's a change, or does it, meaning if we went ahead and funded, if time is of the essence, and if there's any concern that we won't be able to get it done in time, which I don't think that's the case, but if it was, can you reimburse and make it, can the CRA reimburse the other entity and make it, and would that be appropriate, or does it have to be done from the CRA at that time for it to be an appropriate
Sometimes you
use?
can. It just depends on the circumstances. We'd have to look at all those things.
Okay.
Okay. But in any event, I don't think a delay of 2 weeks is going to make a difference in the decision.
Okay.
Any others? Okay, well, I think you're doing the prudent thing tonight by making the decision that you've made, or we're making. Just the idea that it's another $7 or $8 million should make us recognize that it's a big deal. Now, I was on Beach Street today, and I will say that I am very happy with Beach Street. And I spoke with 6 residents on Beach Street, 6 businesses who were all very happy with what they've experienced. Now, I don't know about all of them, and I intend to continue to talk to them, and I do agree that it's reasonable to try to assess all of that. You can't see it all with just the naked eye, but it looks like a different place, and the experience is looking really good. And I realize it's expensive, but what I have felt about trying to improve a city is that sometimes you have to say, I'm going to improve an area, and I'm going to focus on this area, and I'm going to make a splash, And to me, it's a splash, and I've said this before, in the heart, in the middle of where we all exist. It's a splash that we all have access to. And so it doesn't mean that, maybe the splash doesn't need to be this big for 7 or 8 more million on the other end, but maybe it does. But I'm fine with where we are and where we've been going. And, but I am also cognizant of the fact that we need to be prudent and good stewards and make certain that she brings up a good point as it relates to CRA funds. You have other CRAs that struggle, but it's not always apples to oranges. Yeah, Midtown doesn't generate the same revenue, but we've made out of general fund tremendous investment in Midtown. So you can't always say, well, one area gets the same as the next area, and being mayor, I try to recognize that we're here for the good of the whole city. And sometimes the good of the city is that we say we're going to make a big splash in one place. And you can't fix everything simultaneously at the same rate. Just doesn't work that way. I got an email from I think an email today, or maybe it was a phone call, from a resident who used to be a commissioner, who's, I think, quite a brilliant person, who reminded me of the need to pick a few things in certain spaces and focus on those things. So we don't want to lose sight of that, but I do value the reasonableness of the argument being made. I do believe it's a reasonable argument that deserves deep consideration. appreciate you all making the decision we're making. Any other comments? There's none. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Just a side comment. We put roughly $17 million into Orange Avenue. And we put, I don't remember the number in MLK, but it was significant too. And both those projects took not only what funds we had available of CRA, but substantial amount of grant funds and city general revenue funds. So it's not like this one's getting everything and we haven't done something somewhere else. And the truth of it is the transportation funds are going to decrease every year from the sources, the gas tax resources that we have. That's been the history, and there's a reallocation of that resource, and we're going to get probably a couple of $100,000 less this next year than what we did this year. So the sources from outside the city is changing, and that we may not always have those other sources. But we'll look at this one and look at the timing, the use of CRA funds, and versus the use of general funds.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
That was our final
That's our
item.
final item. Who was first tonight? I don't recall.
Traeger.
Commissioner Traeger.
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Delgado.
No comments from me tonight.
Commissioner May.
I have a question about the TPO board. The Citizens Advisory Board, am I correct in saying that who actually gets to appoint a citizen? Is it the commission? Is it the mayor? Is it a discussion that we have? Is it the appointed officer on that board? Who makes the appointment?
Are you talking of the police citizen?
No, the TPO board. We have a Citizens Advisory Board.
I don't know
I think
offhand.
that's probably up to the TPO.
I think it's the
We do it.
the commissioner on that board for us, actually.
Okay, so he's saying he thinks that it's you.
Okay, so there is
Who represents the board.
Sure. There is a position open right now, and my personal policy is that I would like to have as many qualified applicants as possible. And so there is a position open, Citizens Advisory Board. I'm happy to put out, if you want to contact me, I'll get a complete list of qualifications and or requirements for the position. If you have people in your particular areas who are interested in holding that office, so far I've had one person contact me with regard to it, but I would like to have more people apply so we can take a look at it. And then at that time, I would very much like to bring forth the applicants so we can make a shared decision on who it is. I don't think it's just for me to decide, but I would like you all to take a look at the resumes when they come forward. So I'm putting out an open request for anybody who would like to be appointed to the Citizens Advisory Board for the TPO. And hopefully I can get from staff perhaps, pull up a list of qualifications from the TPO so that we know exactly what they should look like for that position. All right, that's number one. Number two, I'm glad that we're cleaning up the waterways right now, because if we are trying to encourage residents and visitors to come and use their boats, I went on the river a few weeks back and I saw quite a few boats, and so I'm hoping that they're now being removed. I think it makes a big difference with regard to the visitors that we do get here. I would also like to recognize, and I know they're going to speak at some point, if you could raise your hands, please. I have some guests from the Bethune-Cookman area, and they're not actually all from Bethune-Cookman. They are visiting students from other universities, and they will be working with me as interns the next few weeks as I explain to them some of the things that are going on locally. And so don't be surprised if they give you a call if you see them in the community, but their interest is in government and in elected officials. So I'm looking forward to working with them in the weeks ahead, and I encourage them to please stand up when it's time for the public comment and practice 2.5 minutes of speaking and be prepared for that, all right? So thank you very much. And Mr. Chisholm, looking forward to a renewed relationship with you, sir. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Commissioner May, just a point of clarification. On this Citizens Advisory Board, it's for our city to put someone on it? Okay.
It's for me to appoint somebody, but I don't want to make that appointment alone because it's a very important appointment.
We'll find out all that.
And we'll get the requirements from it.
He's
I-
not certain, but he's gonna find out the nuances of it, and then we'll,
Sure. I mean, ultimately, I make the decision, but I want you to have equal say in kind of what goes on. All right, thanks.
okay.
Okay, yeah, I
Commissioner
do have a few things. When I received the menu on the ADUs that we discussed the last commission meeting for long-term renting, looking at the LDC requires 2 parking spaces. And I know the last commission meeting, Commissioner Henry was a little concerned, and I'm concerned as well, about the 2 parking spaces. And I know they're going back and re-looking at this. And I want to see if there's any way that when they apply for a permit, because most of the ADUs are going to be just single men, that are in there. So when they apply for a permit, if they can come back, the homeowner, with a parking plan.
Thank you, Dennis Miller, the planning director. Yeah, one of the things we're going to take a look at, that we discovered that with the accessory dwelling units, it does require 2 spaces per unit. Typically, they're smaller spaces, and I would assume to be correct, we haven't done the full study on this. We're probably going to see single people, maybe couples in those apartments, in those units. So we are going to look at a reduction of the parking for that, just to make sure that they do have the space for the single-family unit plus the accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, and did I read that right? Zone 4 has 5 neighborhoods within LPGA that already allows ADUs?
The plan development agreements have regulations in there that do allow the opportunity for accessory dwelling units.
That's what I thought.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And looking at that, I want to make sure that staff is advised of older homes. I know my district is older homes, and of course, parking is going to be challenged. It's going to be a challenging thing, but I do not want people to not have the opportunity to be able to participate and benefit from accessory dwellings as well. So
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we're going to be we start by looking at other communities and how they deal with some accessory dwelling units and see what we can incorporate into the city of Daytona Beach. So we are looking at that. We are concerned on the size of the lot. I mean, when you have smaller lots and you do put the extra units on there, it does affect parking. So we want to make sure we have the parking over there, because a lot of the single families do have more than 2 cars. So there are more cars out there. So we want to be able to make sure we can accommodate that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm curious, sir, are we basing any of this information, maybe Mr. Chisholm can weigh in on this, on that affordable housing study that we're waiting for right now? So are we looking at that to take a look at exactly where it's needed, how many units we need, what type of units we need, whether family units, individual units? Have we started looking at those numbers yet so we can make an accurate assessment?
We have not, as far as I
Oh,
We have not.
okay.
We don't have that number yet.
We would be balancing those numbers against the need, et cetera.
We would like to look at that. That'd be part of it.
It would be
See
part of it.
What is
Okay.
the need, so we're able to accommodate that need.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that study. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also want to make it clear out there, because there's been some communication. Vacation rentals is 6 months and less, and this I'm looking at is 6 months or more.
It's 6
Right.
months, that's
Correct.
typically what we're going to find for these
Right.
accommodation units. Yes, correct.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I wasn't here, but what was your question? It was about, I hear vacation rentals, so I just want to make
Can
sure.
I repeat this?
I'm sorry.
It had nothing to do with vacation rentals.
Parking
I was
requirement.
making it.
Okay.
We were talking about accessory dwelling units and the requirements for accessory dwelling units and a length of time. If somebody were going to be having an accessory dwelling unit, renting that space out, that it would be 6 months or more to be able to do that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sorry, I don't like to miss what you all think or say. Yes, okay, all right, good.
Okay, and the other thing I had, I know that Mayor Henry was talking about this at the last commission meeting as well in his final comments, and it's something I do quite often as well. When I go to a small business, we take pictures and put it up supporting our small business. I'm a small business owner. I wanted to see if there's anything that we can do for incentives for small businesses. I know we have a lot of vacant storefronts, a lot I'm not sure how many, but I do see them around. And if we could do something to make assisting the permits to expedite the process, the certain hurdles from ABC to get it done faster for them. And I don't know, maybe some kind of package we could put together. But that package would not work unless we market it and see if we can get more small businesses in all these empty spaces we have. And let me see. Small businesses are pretty much the backbone of our community. I don't know if the statistic is totally correct, but 68% funnels back into our community from small businesses. And when you're helping a small business, you're helping them to put their kid through college. You're helping them get a new pair of sneakers. I just want to see if there's something we can do, some kind of incentive package to help bring in small
I
business.
don't know what you're asking us to do. If you're asking us to market it for them or.
Well, if we
approve permits?
put some kind of incentive together, I would like to see the permit process expedited. I mean, I know one person that was starting a business, it took almost 4 to 5 months. And I just want to see if, and because there's so many hurdles, you know, if we can get from maybe sign someone in the permitting or someone in the city to help these people that come forward to help them get through the hurdles faster.
Let me just tell you my experience with this. Anyone who's been delayed 4 months, they failed to follow through in their permitting process. It isn't the staff. It may require.
I'm not saying it's staff.
Yeah, well, I'm just telling you what we usually find. So
Right.
sometimes we can help them, sometimes we can't. You know, if they have to get a survey or, it depends on what their issues are. So it's very hard to say, yes, we can solve all these problems when it's all a case by case is what you have to look at.
Right.
And some of them we can, and we will. But we can't say that we're going to do that for everybody because we don't know what it is.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, if maybe we can sign someone to help someone that's having trouble get from A, B, and C, to help expedite the permitting process.
Okay, we can do that.
Right, and maybe some kind of incentive to attract more small businesses?
I think that's where I have a difficult time is trying to figure out how you get the
Okay,
incentive there.
let's say, for instance, trying to think what we could do. Maybe something, my colleagues can, assisting with, assisting with permits, maybe, let's put some kind of package together where we give them a discount on, the first 3 months.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we help you put together what you think you're looking for so we understand it?
Okay,
We'll do it. You work with Mr. Morris and his staff, and that'll include the building office. And we'll tie down some of those issues and identify what can be done.
okay.
And then we'll bring it back, and the commission can decide if that's what they agree to do.
And do we have a figure how many vacant storefronts there is?
I don't think we do. We haven't done that kind of a review at this point.
Okay. Okay.
And when you say storefronts, you mean throughout the city and community-wide everywhere?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
I know a lot of, actually, even in Zone 4, a lot of businesses have moved out to Tanger, so we have a lot of empty spaces. And I'm just saying, thinking if we could do some kind of incentive to attract smaller businesses, expedite the permit process to attract more small businesses to our area.
Let me ask you this. Are you receiving a lot of complaints? Because the one thing I've noticed over the years is that we've gotten progressively better in the permits and licensing department. That's just from my perspective. But are you receiving a lot of small businesses, or is it just one or two that's saying that?
I don't have a
Okay,
whole lot.
okay.
I mean,
Because that's important before you make a policy or a decision. You want to see if it's really a pronounced issue, or is it that we're just as a commission, we want to find ways to promote small business.
correct.
I think that's really what you're after, and I don't think anyone would disagree with you. But we don't want to change policy without it being something that is, a pronounced problem, especially.
I'm not.
And the second thing is, let's figure out ways that we can support small business. And I want to say that in some of those areas where we have real problems that are not commercially motivated or driven, like MMB, there may be a way to say you might want to incentivize trying to improve that particular area. But you got to be careful when you create a carte blanche policy. But I do think that if, the manager is making a good point by saying, sit down with them and see if you can generate something that might resonate with the entire body that we could sort of support.
I just want to maybe add to that a little bit, to help you out a little bit. I myself personally ended up joining the Volusia Hispanic Chamber for the sole purpose, and I've mentioned this before, of telling them if they want to meet with me and we're making a date to do it, I would take them around Daytona Beach myself and say, hey, this is what we have to offer, not offering them anything, but at least showing them, guiding them, and touring them and saying, these are the areas that I think maybe people would be interested in. That's number one. Number two, I'm always encouraging groups of people of events. If you need to have wings, why don't you go and have an event and order your food from MMB? And starting to promote those areas, because again, historically, money has left that community, but money hasn't necessarily come in to purchase the goods that we have to offer there. And so the food there is fantastic. That is what they're thriving on. They do have some services there. So if you want to support the community, I always say, instead of buying a loaf of bread in your community, go and buy a loaf of bread somewhere else. Not that I eat bread, because I don't. But there's some really good restaurants there that if you need catering done, I recommend you go into the area. That's how you can help the community and the small business environment. I think that's also kind of what you're suggesting a little bit.
A little more. Okay.
Oh, I'm actually suggesting as well is trying to speed up the process of the permits. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but I do hear all the time about how long it takes to get a permit and how difficult it is because they're not sure how to get from A, B, and C. So someone in the city, within the city, helping them get from A, B, and C. That's what I'm trying to.
I understand. Okay. I do understand.
Mr. Mayor, I'm on that point when
Cool.
I tried to open a gym on Seabreeze, and I was told that the inspection would occur as like cable, sometime between like 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., and that I would need to be there when they came. And I'm like, well, can you call me and tell me, Fortunately, it was right across from my office, so I was able to kind of spy on him and make sure I got there when they got there. And this was a couple of years ago. But obviously, that was the kind of little things that can make it very hard if you have to leave your one job and go across town to meet these people and you're not given a more specific time. And then even in trying to open a second location in other cities, I think sometimes a lot of it just goes to the training of the staff, in that it's not an adversarial process. It's not supposed to be, oh, you didn't do everything right, we're going to tell you no. It's here's how we can help you and guide you through this process, and it's a collaborative effort as opposed to no. And I'm not saying I haven't had that experience in Daytona Beach at all. The opposite. I'm saying in other cities I have encountered it where it was more like, aha, we got you. You didn't do this, or oh, you didn't know to do this. Instead of comprehensively telling me, hey, here's what to do. Here's a good tip on this. Here's what we can do. And hey, I can get you in next week to speed this along. It was more the attitude of the staff. They were very helpful and they were very quick. And I've also encountered times where it felt like I was trying a guessing game. Oh, we got you. You didn't do this, or oh, we didn't. And that can be very frustrating. I was fortunate that I had people that were helping me do it. But if you were a first-time business owner and you were already nervous and stressed out about it, and if you miss these dates or you have to redo it, it can be very expensive. So I think just making sure that staff continues to emphasize that their job is not to say no, their job is to help get the business going, I think that will make people feel more comfortable. And so to the extent that we have any kind of control over that atmosphere, I think we need to make sure that is the atmosphere in Daytona.
That's pretty much
Yeah.
what I'm getting at. If we could have, like, if someone, a first-time business owner is having trouble filling out this paperwork, doing this, they have someone they can go to and sit down and say, okay, this is what you need to do from A, B, and C to expedite when they're getting stuck.
And if they don't have enough personnel to do that, if that's a lack of manpower or something like that, then I mean, I think that could be, you know, a solution. I mean, it does seem crazy to have someone wait all day, you know, with no better timeline on when they could come by. But I understand you have one person trying to service a whole area. But I think if we had more people, then they could stop to take the time to really hold your hand and go through the process like Commissioner Cantu is talking about, where it's not going to be, you know, just get it done as quickly as I can because I've got 100 other people behind you.
Right.
I can take the time to sit with you and really make sure that you understand what needs to be done. I mean, I even found that with Leticia when we were running for city commission. There's a lot of little forms, and she could very easily say, you didn't fill this out. Send it, mail it to you, wait for you to get the mail, say, oh no, you've got to, you know, instead of just sitting down and making sure that she walks you through it. And I think that having the right people there, which I'm sure we do, would really, I think, help with that. So maybe if we are finding long wait times, then maybe we should just get more people down there. Is there a way to see what the average wait time is? Can we pull that statistic and find out what the turnaround time is?
We can check and see what the wait time is. I don't know what it is.
I don't mean literally the wait. I mean like what the average time from application to.
Right.
I think those are reasonable things what we're talking about is
Yeah, I'm not
improving
complaining
service.
about staff.
I know.
I'm just, if you're starting a new business, sometimes it could be confusing, and they're getting frustrated, you know, because they have to get from A to B, you know, and if they could be able to sit down with someone, okay, this is what you need to do. And
If you can give me the name of somebody that, you know, that has had that problem, that might help us too.
can do
Understand
that.
what his problem would be.
Well, like, I mean, some of the problems are like, I'm going through this right now. Oh, well, you can only have an inspection on this time. Well, that's a whole week away. So now that's another week that I can't open because I can't do it until that. And that's, again, I'm sure there's hundreds of other people that want the same thing. But I think the perception is, oh, man, this is so inefficient. When you're not seeing it from the perspective of they've got 100 other applicants, and so they really can't just come back tomorrow or come back in 30 minutes when you've got it turned around. But if I'm sure there's ways to improve that system, or at least explain to consumers why it is that way. It's not that I can't come back tomorrow and look at your stupid little flow valve or whatever it is, or my flush valve or something stupid. You know, the color of my sign. You know, it's just that, you know, there's 100 other signs we have to say no to.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is I think that what we're talking about tonight, or you guys are addressing, a lot of it is just efficiency. And there's nothing wrong with us pushing staff to be more efficient and showing us how you're efficient or not efficient. You know, and if you've got some sort of timeline that says it takes us 2 months from an application on average to get someone into their business, then we know that, and then you can look at it. So it's all about assessing and doing what we, you know, typically call reflective practice. You reflect on what you're
could
doing.
attract more small businesses if they know the process is going to be a lot more simple.
Yeah. Okay.
Scott, actually, March 28th, the Palmetto House. I'm a member of the Marine Corps of Daytona and the Military of the Purple Heart, and they are teaming up with Halifax Health and Mid-Florida Housing, and actually Victor Ramos as a Daytona commissioner, and he actually works for Mid-Florida Housing. The Palmetto House has 71 residents, and they have 8 veterans there. And there's going to be a pinning ceremony, and Halifax House have asked our mayor to speak on this as well. And so I would like, if anyone can make it, it's at 12 o'clock noon. May. Did I say March?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. May 28th, and it's at 12 noon. Okay, and my last final thing, May has been a busy month, recognizing our heroes in the military and the law enforcement. both the Armed Forces Day and the National Peace Officer Memorial Day fell this past Saturday on May 15th. We have Memorial Day approaching for our fallen military, and I'd just like to recognize all of our national holidays for our heroes in uniform.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Henry?
Only one comment tonight, and that is that I forgot to mention this a meeting or so ago. I was driving down the road on Nova Road a few weeks back, and I looked over in the Gardens apartment. I think that is Soul City. Is it what now? The Gardens. And I saw a lot of police officers, and I thought, oh my goodness, what is going on now? And I looked over, and there was music and hot dogs and police interacting with the residents over in the Gardens apartment. I had never seen that before, and I just wanted to let you all know that that's the kind of interaction that our wonderful chief is doing in the community. And I saw that, and I thought it was wonderful, and the kids were having a good time. The officers were interacting and talking to the children and the adults, and it was really good to see something positive, a positive interaction between our police and that community.
That's good. That's great, actually.
That was my only comment. Good night.
Absolutely, because our children need to be taught that our police are here to help them, to not be afraid of them. So thank you, Chief Takari, and your staff for doing that. The mayor said tonight about improving the area and making a big splash. So I just want to give you all just a little taste that MCDC is preparing to come before you with a presentation that I think you're going to be excited about, and I can't wait to share it with you. We've shared a little bit with the manager and with the attorney, and it's something exciting that I think you are going to really appreciate and hopefully also support.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Like hearing that good stuff. Okay, I'm not going to be long tonight, although I will tell you guys, I have about 1,000 things that's circling around in my head, at least 1,000. And as we say goodbye to our manager, the new manager is going to have 1,000 things swirling around in his head soon, because all of these things I'm going to be sharing with him. So many of them that I can't get them all out. But you know, things are looking up. There's no place that I would rather be, and there's no job that I would rather have than this job. And so my one remark tonight is this. This week, there was an article written in the newspaper about our city and whether we are not just our city, but it seems to be always focused on us. Overdevelopment, and are we overdeveloped? And the one thing I've learned is that, and I really believe this with all of my being, is that criticism and questioning the decisions that we make is a good thing. It's a reasonable thing, and we should not reject that or be afraid of it. We should welcome it, because it should make us a better city. It should make us better decision makers. When people question us and question our motive and our rationale, because it's the public's work. It should be done in public, and it should measure up to public scrutiny. And so I've read that article several times, and while, you know, I don't always agree with everything that others say, some other elected officials and other community-minded folks, but I, again, believe they're coming from a good place of intention. And so as I have been pondering, wanting to write an editorial about us and our development, I want to remind us in Daytona Beach that we waited, you know, a long time to have some measure or modicum of development. And not all of the development is is on NLPGA. I mean, you have a hotel that some people are happy with, some are not. But it's a $100 million project halfway done. And that's on the beach side. And nobody's complaining about traffic on our beach side. You know, we recently approved a apartment complex on the beach side. I think it was $30 or $40 million. A few years ago, Hard Rock made a $30 or $40 million improvement. You may not like all of that. You have a new Renaissance Hotel going in on the beach side, another $30 or $40 million investment. We approved a few weeks ago townhomes on the beach side. And so it's not all LPGA. And while you may not like that because you don't want to become a concrete jungle, and I don't want to be a concrete jungle either, but there is, you know, 8 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to give $4 million back to the residents. We would not have been able to do that. And no matter where you say Jim, and I agree, he knows how to hide money or whatever you call it in management funds. He's leaving, so he doesn't have to worry about it. I agree, he knows how to do that, but we didn't have that then. And so we have to be careful when we say we simply want to turn the faucet off. But I asked, 6 months ago, I asked for a map, and staff has given us a map. And it's the map that I've asked for is that we really do sit down and say and look at particularly LPGA and look at all of the development that is there and determine whether we want to, you know, we need to make the decision as to whether we want to slow it down some or find a way to say that this is too fast. But that's a decision we need to make. But we need to have a community discussion about it. But in the meantime, let's not begrudge that. I don't think it's prudent, and I think it is what we asked for as a community 8 years ago, 9 years ago at least. Nobody was doing anything in our community. And so this rush to come to Daytona Beach when, you know, Ormond Beach and Port Orange, they don't have the valuation problems that we have. They don't have the core city phenomenon that we have. So we don't want to respond just because people who live in their community want us to respond in a way that they would think it's, you know, they don't, their valuations and their property values far exceed ours. And the fact that we now were able to pass on to our residents, this year we didn't have to raise taxes. And so those are things for us to take into consideration as we deliberate. And the final thing I would say is that if you believe that we're overdeveloping or we're developing too fast, you know, I call on all who are in positions of authority and who have a degree of influence as it relates to LPGA, the LPGA Bridge, Williamson, and all other areas as it relates to infrastructure. Let's work on solving the infrastructure issues, because we knew 25 years ago that these were areas that were to be developed. You couldn't reasonably expect Daytona Beach, who 8 years ago couldn't do half of what we're able to do today, to say that when these things came available to us, that we were simply going to say no. Wasn't going to happen, would not have been prudent for us to have done that. So let's make certain that we are working together to find ways to solve the infrastructure issues. And then as a community, if we cannot meet the demand, we can subtly begin to slow things down. But I do not call on the city of Daytona Beach to simply turn the faucet off without making some critical decisions and being informed about what our traffic demands are. I drive LPGA every day, at least 2, sometimes 5, 10 times a day. I do not believe it's currently overdeveloped, but I do see the need to be able to meet the demand moving forward and call upon us to have a workshop ultimately to allow the community to weigh in on it. But it's sort of concerning to me when people from Deltona and people from Ormond by the Sea are over concerned about the traffic out there, when the reality is we're not having traffic all over Daytona Beach. That's one area. And the people who move into Margaritaville or move into the new developments, we can't just allow them to come in and say, oh, it was good enough for you, but now it's not good enough for other folks. Because I knew when I moved there 10 years ago that there was going to be some degree of traffic. So if you don't like it, to some degree, if you live out there, you got to say, this is coming. We never told you we were going to turn the valve off. And so all of that has to be in our deliberation. And I would say that moving forward, I know our new manager's coming on, but we need to have a workshop. We need to review those maps, and we need to determine, if and how we want to slow it down or if we just want to leave it just as it is. But I want to make informed decisions and be considerate of it. And in conclusion, thank you for your work.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor. Just a brief comment. Sometimes we forget that the city limits we have today is the very same city limits we had 16 years ago. And there's a lot of undeveloped property within the city. And the area around the LPGA was all a part of what they call a DRI, which is a planned development process. And the state abandoned that process, but it didn't change the land uses and the ability to develop those properties. So there's it's kind of a phenomena that's beginning to mature, and it's not something new. It's something that we've had on the table for some time. But like you said, it took us a long time to get started also. But beyond that, it's been my pleasure to work with this board and the other boards of the city. And there's a lot of good things that are yet ahead of this city. And you have someone who has skills and leadership capabilities, and I'm sure he's going to be able to assist in guiding the city along with the policies that you develop and continue to bring good things to Daytona Beach. And it's a good place to live today. It'll be a good place to live tomorrow. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mayor, I do have one minor matter. The time has elapsed again for the city attorney's office to continue representation of the First Step Shelter pursuant to its contract. And so if you'd like the city attorney's office to continue in that representation, we'll need to amend the contract. We've done that in the past for 3-month increments. If you'd like to make a motion to that effect.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor. I'm still looking to find someone to take Bob's spot. But
Appreciate that motion. All right, appreciate that second.
Public
comment? No public comment? All right. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. You happy with that, aren't you, Roseanne? Me too. Okay, if there nothing else, this meeting is adjourned, and we're going to get started with our public comments.
Okay, our first speaker for the public comment forum is John Nicholson, and on deck is Roseanne Tortora. I'm sorry.
She is a tornado.
Torrid.
88 ounces a day so far.
They're after.
Yeah, I get my water.
I should have, or though I might have gotten them. Thank you all. Mr. Chisholm, I wanted to say that I love you dearly. I love your family. I'm going to the wedding of this beautiful child. I've seen her model all over the world. She is very famous. You're going to see more of her. But I want you to know that as a mentor for me, for all of the years that you have helped me do the right thing when I was going to do the wrong thing, and the emotion that you've given me to help me do that, I will never forget. You mentored me all these years, and you helped me to know it was right to build the safe zone, which I'm very proud of, and thank you for all your help. And thank all of you. You work so hard. I'm just amazed at how hard you work. I will always treasure the moments that I have known you. Thank you.
Thank you. I would have let you talk at the beginning. I didn't know she wanted to do that. Okay.
John Nicholson, 413 North Granby Avenue. Couple of things. One, you forgot to mention the shores and Ponce Inlet. Remember 15 years ago, the overbuilding? So they went through it. It's our turn now.
Yeah.
Secondly, been here, coming to meetings for almost 40 years. I have never, ever, Miss May, heard of a citizens advisory board for the TPO. It has never, ever been mentioned. It's never been in any article that we have in the lobby. Third, accessory dwelling units. There's a house right next to the county parking garage on Orr Street. It was one house with a garage apartment. It is now 7 units, and they have 8 cars with only 2, and they took the parking garage and made them units. So their backyard is now full with 2 cars. The other cars park on the street. So we have to be very careful. If we do accessory units, limit the cars, okay? Third, flooding. I talked to the county council yesterday on flooding. I mentioned, because they had several developments come in, and the neighbors were complaining about the development brought in flooding. There was a gentleman who had a pasture, couldn't put his cows there because of the flooding. We have that in the northern part of Ormond. We have it in our Midtown area. We've had it for years. I used to work at the liquor store off Orange Avenue, and when it really poured, you had to come in off Nova Road because you couldn't come in Keith Street. So I'm asking you, and I asked them to work together because Jim had a plan to take the Nova Canal water and move it out west. So I would ask the city to think about that. Same thing we're doing with Bennett Swamp. We do that with the water from Nova. It would help with the flooding. And I was going to talk about Jim, and the last thing, there's a fence on Ocean Avenue. We've taken all the fences off Ocean Avenue except for the one right next to our park. It looks terrible. They took down all of the seawalls from International to the park except for the seawall owned by the city. So I'm asking the city to take a look at their seawall, if they could be removed. Also, there's no access for the public parking on our parking lot to get to the beach. So I'm asking for that to be looked at as well.
Mr. Nichols, I have a question for you. Didn't you tell me you have an ADU on your at your house?
No, what do you mean, accessory development?
When we were talking about
Yeah,
this,
don't you
have
apartment
one
garage. Oh, yeah.
You have one, and you said you are allowed to rent yours out long-term?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's
All
a
of
lot
Beachside has it.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
But I'm
There's
just
a lot
very,
of
very
them out
careful
over.
because there are units coming in where there's no parking.
Right, and that's what we were discussing. a few
Right,
minutes
and
ago
make sure,
about
the parking, I don't care about the number of people, it's the parking that's going to be causing the problem in the future for the neighbors.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Destiny Sykes. And on deck is Maria, is it Sovis?
Hello, everyone. My name is Destiny Spikes, a senior attending Bethune-Cookman University, majoring in business administration from Eustis, Florida. I first would like to greatly thank Commissioner May for presenting an opportunity to speak about the Started Up program. And I also want to thank her for being a great community leader and thank her for her services for the students at Bethune-Cookman University. I would also like to sincerely give thanks to the professors and the administration team that worked diligently for this process to be established. Started Up program is a summer internship program for students who have an entrepreneurship mentality. This program was constructed to help students acquire the resources to advance their knowledge and skills in executive positions. Resources that I find particularly helpful and accessible, such as working directly with Commissioner May and Dr. Chester Wilson and learning the processes and techniques in managing a business. We engage in a firsthand experience to observe and analyze the external and internal factors of being an executive and entrepreneur. This program is an 8-week experience of development. The objective of this program is to allow students to shadow real businesses, owners, and obtain valuable techniques in which should be used as assets. Valuable techniques such as leadership, communication, critical thinking, and even in-depth as comprehending contracts, organizing executive business meetings, and understanding the financial and monetary components of a business. Towards the end of this 8-week process, we must exhibit how well we have retained the information learned. We would do this by creating a presentation of a strategic analysis, which includes the company's synopsis, SWOT analysis, customer interview, and a traditional and social media analysis. After identifying the problems, we will offer consultation. These operations correspond to real business responsibilities. This program offers a various amount of opportunities, and as a business major, I am delighted to use these resources to cultivate my passion for being an entrepreneur. Thank you.
That was well written and well said. Very well written. Very.
30 seconds, you followed my guidance. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Mariana, and I'm going to have you pronounce your name.
It's a good thing this thing is bendable. Good evening. My name is Mervia Swayuz. I'm a student at the great and historic Bethune-Cookman University. I'm actually a senior. I'm preparing to enter into the workforce as a media personality. Currently, I am training at WRS, WS, LPFM 99.1. I am also co-developing Bethune-Cookman's most recent news outlet that will provide information to not only the Wildcat community, but the alumni and local community. I am also the president of the Black Executive Exchange Program, and I am a member of Thurgood Marshall Speech and Debate Society. Nice to meet you all. That's my introduction. And now, this summer, I have the opportunity to be a participant of the Started Up Internship Program. This is a multidisciplinary entrepreneurship program that allows students to understand from an experiential point of view how to run a business. It covers operation and management and everything alongside that. This is an 8-week experience that includes meeting with an assigned mentor every week, and it also includes engaging with local businesses, community organizations, and community leaders. And finally, it includes a course offered every Friday that will eventually lead to a LinkedIn certification. I believe one of the greatest benefits of this program that make it especially advantageous to students is the opportunity to apply textbook theories and materials to real-life situations and make money while doing it. On the day of our orientation, our program directors and mentors said that this opportunity was not available to them when they were in our position. And so I feel especially grateful for this opportunity, for our dedicated faculty who took the time out of their summer to maintain this program, and to our community partners, including Commissioner May, who we're looking very forward to becoming more acquainted with. And that's basically my tidbit. I'm sure that you all are looking forward to hearing more about this program, and if you are interested, it's going to be posted on our news outlets at Bethune-Cookman University, 99.1 WRS. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Frederick Brown, and on deck is Marjorie Johnson.
Great job, young people. Great job.
How do I follow up all that youth and energy with my old age and slow moving? Again, it's Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge, Daytona Beach. First of all, Mr. Mayor, we had a brief chat outside. Belated happy birthday. I didn't get a chance to say that last week. I had a family commitment with an anniversary involved. You know, I've talked to you in the past, and I really, really enjoyed what you had to say at the last meeting about the parks, and that is so, so very, very important. You talk about slowing down the development. Well, again, that's one of the considerations that you have is to ensure that you have the infrastructure, because once everybody moves in, that's when they want to look for a nice park to be. Or possibly they might want to take access to the river. There's a comprehensive plan for the city states that there will be access every mile. The last access was removed. And I've stated this numerous times. I hope to get a personal discussion with you and go over this, but that was a 1926 agreement with the developer setting aside the land for the public forever. That's exactly what you spoke about at the last meeting, getting the developers set aside, do their job, set aside the public areas. That was a chance for us to do the right thing and go back the way we did it back in 1926. There were several other subjects I wanted to cover. Unfortunately, I don't have very much time to talk. Traffic safety is another thing I talked to you about. Unfortunately, we had a death here fairly recently, only a couple blocks from my house, and it was very tragic. Now, as a retired engineer and a person who did a lot of work in optical design and safety systems, I've been through that intersection many, many times, and I can tell you very clearly what was wrong, why that person died and the other person was severely injured. And there's answers for that. And I would like to sit down with you, Mr. Mayor, and I would like to get a task force going, at least we can discuss how to set it up, and let me use some of my skills so that we don't kill any more people, because there are answers out there. I've researched this very exclusively. Another area that I want to talk about, I'm running out of time, but I would like to see the city put a little more pressure on getting a Veterans Memorial Park done. It's lost in limbo because of lack of funding. I know it's a county project, but I would like the city to get involved as well. Another item I'd like to throw on there is the Citizens Academy. I think it's an outstanding project. I wanted to sign up for it, but then, as you know, COVID struck. And lastly, I only have 4 seconds. I hope that's the last ICE vehicle approval you do for the police department. Get some Teslas. Thank you.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Our next speaker is Marjorie Johnson. On deck is Linda Smiley.
I'm Marjorie Johnson, 122 South Key Street. I'd like to first go over the problems that we're having in Zone 6. Down in the, I'm in the 100 block, and the next block, the yard has grown up 6 feet tall. I brought it up at 6 different meetings, and it still hasn't been cut. That yard need to be cut. They tore the house down on the property. There's another house on that street where a homeless man is in, and he has all kind of junk in front. On my street, there's a yard that has not been cut. It was going to demolish the building, but they let it stay. So that yard need to be cut. It hasn't been cut in 6 months. So those problems, we have no accessibility to our so-called zone people or the mayor or anybody. We can't have any meetings. We had this in the past, and that's not going on now. Also, tonight, they spoke about funds to pave Beach Street. Well, you haven't paved in front of Bethune-Cookman. Benita May represents that zone, and she hasn't done anything about getting that cracked up hump street paved. You went and got an honorary degree. Your wife worked up there. All this time, 3 terms, the street hasn't been paved. It needs to be paved. It needs to have a priority. You need to use the CRE funds or whatever you need to do to make that happen. I'm always an advocate for diversification of our workforce, and Scarlett Golden and Cherry made sure that that happened when they were here. Now, tonight you did a proclamation in recognition of Emancipation Day, but I would like for you to make sure that you put us back in the meeting when the new city manager comes. I find it discrimination and hardcore racism that we have to speak after the meeting is over. When Cherry and Scarlett Golden was here, we spoke in the meeting before and after with 3 minutes. All our minutes have been taken away, and we are last on the agenda. This is very discriminatory, and it needs to be corrected. And I'm saying, I'm happy we have a new city manager, out with the old and in with the new. I feel that he'll do a good job, but you was elected to serve the citizen, and he was right. We have less time to speak at this podium. Put it back.
Our next speaker is Linda Smiley, and on deck is Sandy Murphy.
Linda Smiley, 357 Manhattan. In January of this past year, 2020, there was a presentation asking the city to stop using the single-use plastic water bottles and to put in water filling stations, particularly over at Midtown Cultural Center. A few days ago, it popped up on Facebook, and it looks like nothing's been accomplished in that area. And the picture of the water fountain there is pretty deplorable. So I'm wondering how come this hasn't been addressed, and there's been no follow-up with that. I carry a water bottle everywhere I go, and you could use this chance to make this your new form of advertisement, having folks carry their bottle around with your city logo on it. Let's be forward-thinking for a change and stop filling the landfill with these single-use plastics. As far as the narrowing of Beach Street, I was down there today at the post office, and I was thinking about what I read in the paper about the narrowing, and I thought, if they narrow this, I can turn at Bay Street and get out of here without having to participate in the decrease of the lanes. So I was already planning my escape route. Traffic studies should be done to see if we have benefited from the change already. We have lots of new things potentially coming downtown, and I say potentially because we have a history of things not coming that we approve. And decreasing lanes may not be the best thing at this time. We need to see if we have, what we've spent so far, we should be looking at making some improvements to the Midtown area with this amount of money, and you could be tying the areas together, with some increased walkability down in that area. I don't know how many of you go in that area, but, as a child, we used to drive through there all the time, and you have an opportunity to tie that in if you start thinking about it. So let's get the most bang for our buck. How about that?
No.
Our next speaker is Sandy Murphy, and on deck is Ann Ruby.
Good evening. Sandy Murphy, 136 Park Avenue. I wanted to remind you that we have two properties that are bookending Riverfront Park, the new Esplanade, that are just sitting around in limbo. And I think it's important for us to consider what we're going to do with them. This should be a project that our redevelopment authority, our redevelopment department is paying some attention to. We have the Orange Avenue City Island Recreation Center at the one end, that historic property. At the other end, we have trundled the Josie Rogers house down there and proceeded to do absolutely nothing with it. Another historic property, and nothing is happening there. It's not being maintained. It's not being improved. And apparently there are no plans to do anything with it. If we want to make the most of that Esplanade, we need to make the most of the resources that we have surrounding it as well. And I think we need to pay some attention to those two properties and make something happen there. I want to thank Stacy for bringing up the idea of an ombudsman. It's something that I've talked about in the past, somebody who can help walk our citizens through the processes at City Hall. I think if you want a good example of how that works, you can look to Ms. LaMagna there. Several times when we have been involved in campaigns, what she does is she brings people in, she gives them a quick run-through, she gives them an opportunity to ask their questions, and I think it avoids a whole lot of problems down the line because they have that opportunity up front. So I think if we could do that in terms of permitting and so forth, That would be an advantage. And finally, I want to go back to the idea of those roadway priorities. I'm curious, and I hope you're curious, about what has happened to the plan of prioritizing our roadway improvements and what our overall plan is for this city. The half-cent sales tax was defeated in large part because of a lack of trust of how that money was actually going to be spent. And I think this is kind of reinforcing that idea that just because somebody says they're going to something, it doesn't mean it happens. So I think the citizens deserve an explanation of what's going to happen with all of our roadways budget as you look at the Beach Street improvements. Thank you.
Our final speaker this evening is Ann Ruby.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. I moved. On the new ordinance regarding notice of vacation of right-of-way, could those, I don't know if they are already, could those notifications go out the same way DIMS do? You sign up for an email and you get every notification, so you're not just notified if you're within 500 feet. I think that would maybe address some people who want to know about everything that happens. The Burgoyne block, that block between ISB and Bay, you guys approved that PD. It doesn't have to start for 5 years. It's very clear that they're going to tear down all those buildings. You're already seeing businesses exit that block. Like Rosie's found a place on Bay Street and moved. I think you need to keep an eye on that and maybe ask Burgoyne to participate in some kind of a business incubator concept and get businesses to stay in there on a temporary basis. Come in there, grow, move on. Because otherwise, if more and more businesses leave as the 5-year period gets closer, it's going to be harder to sell. It's a win-win if that street stays vibrant. So I think there needs to be some thought given to that. 3, before you go thinking that Orange Avenue was done in a CRA without CRA money, Orange Avenue had to be done. It was in desperate need. What happened, what you're trying to do, I understand you want the splash on Beach Street, but that is a very different depth of project. And it may be that there's infrastructure under there that's as bad as Orange Avenue. So that's a different issue, but I think that needs very careful consideration and evaluation. So, and then 4, the map. The map that the city produced is not great. They know. They did a lot of great research on the projects, but the way the graphic data is displayed is not useful. The graphic display of data is very powerful, and the parcels should be outlined for each planned development. If it's a combination of parcels, you outline it as like, this is the one big planned development. The density should be, of the color should show you the density of the buildings and the commercial square footage that's going there. The trips on the roadways should be included from every traffic study and make the lines heavier. I can see it in my head. It would be so useful if it was done right. I know our GIS department has the skills to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, and we talked about that before, so why don't you craft something for me in the way of an email, because I want us to have the most useful information, because this is important to me. The information needs to be, tight, and staff needs to be able to tell us, how many people are moving on the roads, and when these properties are built out, how many will be there. So that's very important to me. Good night, Daytona Beach. It is a great day to be among the living and a great day to be a resident of this city.